Greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, Robert Meyer Burnett. I invite you to watch and listen to the Designing Hollywood podcast, brought to you by Martika Ibarra and the great, legendary Hollywood costume designer, Marilyn Vance. I am afforded the wonderful opportunity of co-hosting the show. If you are interested in the magic of Hollywood, the design of Hollywood, the clothes of Hollywood, watch the Designing Hollywood podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts from, or find the video version on the John Campea YouTube channel. That's right, the Designing Hollywood podcast. Why would you ever want to miss it? Especially if you love the movies.
Robservations with Robert Meyer Burnett.
I've heard it said before, like, it was a very smart man named Robert Meyer Burnett who said the currency of our current age is authenticity. And it's so true.
Imagination Connoisseurs Unlimited, in association with Road to Perdition writer Max Allan Collins, brings you True Noir, the Nathan Heller casebooks, based on his 19-novel series about Nathan Heller, once a Chicago PD officer turned private eye to the stars. Starring Todd Stashwick, this 10-episode, 8-hour, fully immersive audio drama will be crowdfunding. Well, let's hope this week. Soon. We're very excited about this. I hope you will be too.
Greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, the sommelier of sci-fi and cinema, your evangelist of the imagination, and of course, the perhaps never to be defined existential Mr. Rogers. That's right, me, Robert Meyer Burnett, and I'm broadcasting you imagination connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community. This is Robservations episode number 958. Well, CinemaCon is rolling. It started today. I am not there. Combination of work and other things, the crowdfunding campaign being one of them. I couldn't go this year, which is a bummer because John and Taylor and Ray and Ann are seeing The Fall Guy tonight. Very exciting. And George Miller spoke at CinemaCon, the director of the Mad Max franchise, who's one of my favorite directors. If you've not seen Lorenzo's Oil, do yourself a favor. Yes, it's not a Mad Max movie, but it is a terrific film. You should seek it out and find it because it's great. Furiosa, I believe, is going to play Wednesday night. Don't quote me on it. Although, to be honest, I heard something I didn't like. Somebody told me that Furiosa was the Phantom Menace of the franchise. What that means, I don't know, but there's a lot of people that have commented on the lack of verisimilitude in the way the film looks. I can't speak to that because I haven't seen it. I'm pulling for George Miller. It's one of my most eagerly awaited films of my birthday month, May. But according to you, every day is my birthday. Now, before that, before I start into tonight's topics, which are all about movies and theaters and all of that, there are a group of fine filmmakers who have self-financed a fan film, a Mad Max fan film, which they actually sent me to watch. It's over 40 minutes long. And I have to say, for a fan film, it's one of the most impressive I've ever seen, to be honest. And I've worked on a few in my time. I wanted to play the trailer. The movie is going to go live on YouTube on May 5th. And look, my name is, they used a comment I made after I saw the movie in this trailer. I am not shilling for a fan film. I am shilling to see talented filmmakers and graphic novel artists do great work. And but don't let me sway you. Take a gander at Hope and Glory.
Society fell apart. Governments broke down. And mankind lost its humanity.
Where are you? You promised to save us. Who do we have here?
My daughter, she was taken by the buzzards. Together we can find her.
No. You get yourself killed. Who looks after your daughter then?
She is everything I got.
Why didn't you save me?
What should we call you?
Max. My name is Max. Run.
Happy to support any filmmakers that can do work like that. To me, that's the future. I mean, obviously that's not their IP. They don't own it. It's a fan film, but I can see great things coming from the team that made this film. Great original work in the future. This looks amazing. When I first saw this, I'm like, wait a minute, is this not a Mad Max TV series? I would believe that this could be a streaming series. I mean, well done, folks. Hail, fellows, well met. This was a great piece of work. And the movie itself, it delivers. I mean, as a fan film, I would say, wow. And just as a film, quite enjoyable. I mean, I worked at Full Moon Entertainment, and if Full Moon Entertainment had made a movie like that, it would have been their #1 movie of the year. So check it out. It drops May 5th on the tubes right here. So the information is at the end of the trailer. Like them, subscribe to them, find them on socials. Tell them I sent you. Anyway, let's talk movie theaters. Let's talk how movie theaters the bellwether of Western civilization. But first I get into that, I do want to read a quick letter. By the way, I pulled out my Ed Piskor X-Men Omnibus of X-Men Grand Design and Hip Hop Family Tree right there. I recommend them both. Although I have to say, people have told me that they're both out of print. I guess you can still get the Omnibus on Amazon. I believe you can. And I think you can still get it on a website or something. But Grand Design is totally out of print. And I don't mean to send people there if you can't buy it. I'm sorry. Maybe Marvel will reprint it, repop it. But definitely get it. But I wanted to catch up. There was a tip that was sent in 2 days ago from Peter. And it was about the Ed Piskor show from a week ago. Episode 956. Was it 956? Yeah. And Peter says, 956 resonated with me and reminded me of a line in World's Greatest Dad. Something along the lines of, suicide is a permanent solution to a short-term problem. My takeaway was you helping your school friend, and things may have worked out for her in the end. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate, I appreciate you saying that. I appreciate you supporting the channel in that way. So thank you very much. I mean, a lot of people wondered. I told that story about something that happened to me personally and a friend of mine, because to me, a woman being victimized, well, let's call it what it is, a woman being raped for 4 years by her mother's boyfriend since she was 12 years old, that kind of horror and that kind of abuse is different than talking to somebody online. But according to activists now, there's very little. You're either a demon or you're not. And I would say that there's lots of shades of gray, and that's why we have a legal system. And this idea that, and I think what happened to Ed, and to watch the people who pilloried him cut and run, take away their tweets, the stuff that the accusatory, it's disgusting. I'm like, if you're going to accuse somebody of something and your accusations lead to death, don't take down what you posted. That's a cowardly move. You either believe in what you're going to accuse people of, you either believe and you have conviction, or you don't. And if you don't have conviction, shut the fuck up. Go into the hole you crawled out of, because people do not forget. And there is blood on people's hands, make no mistake. And they can say what they want, but a man is gone. A man who created these works right here. And Hip Hop Family Tree alone is something that I will revere till the end of my days, because it was one artist celebrating the art of other artists. And I don't think that there's any higher praise than that. And I don't know if anyone who went after Mr. Piskor have done what he's done. And it's sad, but I appreciate you writing in, and thank you for supporting the channel, Peter. I very much appreciate it. So, anyway, we're going to start. Now, as I said, to me, when I was growing up, movie theaters were so important. Movies were like, I'm not a very religious, I was raised in a Jewish family, but my father's side of the family was not religious. His sister, my aunt's side of the family was far more religious. Her kids, my cousins, lived on kibbutzes in Israel and all of that. But I still had a Jewish education. I went to Sunday school for a very long time. I learned Hebrew. I was bar mitzvahed. And one of the things I always liked about Judaism is it always encouraged exploration and education. And while I didn't go to church much, I didn't go to synagogue much, I had a lot of religion school, but I always thought of movie theaters as my religious. It was a place to go. It was a place of reverence. It was a place of worship for me. And in a way, I always thought of movie theaters as a place that had I know this is going to seem weird, but had a divine spark in them because of how hard it was to make films, and how filmmaking was a collective artwork that brought all the human art forms through the ages and had the added benefit, the added spin of technology. Movies couldn't have existed 200 years ago. And it wasn't until the late 1800s and early 1900s we had the technology to make movies. And then in the late 1920s, sound came in. And then as we've moved through the 20th century and into the 21st century, as technology has increased, the tools for filmmaking have expanded. So movies have grown through the 20th century for the last 100 years, along with technology. And to me, movie theaters were also a bellwether of civilization. People have called me right-wing, people have called me left-wing, people have called me a communist, a capitalist, all kinds of things, but I consider myself a civilizationist. I've told people that my great fear is the fall of civilization and having to be on the receiving end. Not something I want to be on, but movie theaters, to me, represented a very specific kind of civilization, because you have all of these strangers from all walks of life. When you go into a movie theater, no one's looking around going, well, maybe some people are, but I've never looked around and gone, well, I'm not going to sit by that guy, or I'm not going to sit by that woman. I've never thought about the people that when I get into a theater, I just love that there's people there. All kinds of people, young, old, men, women, straight, gay, religious, not religious. Take your pick. However you define civilization, when you go into a movie theater, you get everyone. You get everyone. And everyone is there for the same thing. Everyone is there to sit in the dark and to be captivated by whatever images, whatever stories, whatever journey unfolds on that screen. That, to me, man, what a buzz. And feeling the response of all of those people, all of those disparate, unique individuals in that theater with you. When you're in a film that's totally transportive and it takes you away, and you can feel everybody in the theater feeling the things that you're feeling. How great is that? I mean, that is, for me, growing up, there was no greater there was no greater thing to do. I remember, a lot of people don't remember this because it was 42 years ago. But 42 years ago, the summer of 1982, yeah, we've talked about this as so many times, but the summer of 1982, which, by the way, was when The Road Warrior opened in the United States, the summer of 82 from like May to August was full of bangers. In the space of 2 months, say it with me, Conan, Star Trek II, Poltergeist, The Thing, Tron, Rocky 3. It was, did I say Blade Runner and The Thing open on the same day? Poltergeist and Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan open on the same day. But Steven Spielberg had a movie within all that. And no one knew anything about it. And it was, of course, E.T., the extraterrestrial. But when E.T. was made, it was made in secrecy. Like, I saw a really great trailer for Poltergeist, and it was kind of a docu-trailer where people are talking about what poltergeists were. Today, the first thing a studio would do, some marketing guy would go like, you can't call a movie Poltergeist. No one knows what that is. But, so anyway, glad I saw that. But that was like a Sophie's Choice, Star Trek II or Poltergeist. I mean, you know what I picked. I went and saw Star Trek II 4 times opening day at the John Dan Cinema, which no longer exists. They had a laser show where they showed the trailer with laser effects before every show. It was awesome. I don't know why you'd want to show a trailer, though, before the movie you were about to see, but it worked at the time. Poltergeist was the Saturday movie, which I saw in 70 millimeter at the Town Theater in downtown Seattle. Anyway, so E.T. was opening. And what they did, so the trailers didn't really tell you much, and they kept the movie a secret. So I went. Steven Spielberg, height of his powers, the last movie he made was Raiders of the Lost Ark. No one thought of 1941 as a misstep. I mean, here was the man that gave us Jaws, Close Encounters, and Raiders. And now this was his new, presumably, science fiction film. And I went with a bunch of people that I didn't know. Kids, adults, we all went because Steven Spielberg was revered like a god at that point. Could do no wrong. E.T. Imagine going into a theater and watching E.T., not knowing anything about it, just that it was called E.T. the Extraterrestrial. What kind of an extraterrestrial? Like an alien? Like a close encounter? Like the alien from Alien? Like Spock? He was an E.T. What kind of an E.T.? No one knew. It was secret. And when we went and saw it, it was a public sneak. They used to have these public sneaks where they would show a movie like a week before they would open, generate word of mouth. I cannot tell you how exciting it was to sit in that theater with a bunch of strangers that had no idea what they were going to see. I mean, it was like there was 2 times in my life I went to churches. I went to a Southern Baptist church once, and I went to Jack Hayford's Church on the Way with a producer named Penelope Foster that I met at Warner Brothers. Those are the only 2 other times I physically felt energy from the crowd. Like, the Southern Baptist Church, they blew the roof off the house. I mean, not literally, but you know what I mean. The singing, the participation, it was amazing. And sometimes Pastor Jack Hayford's speeches could elicit that response, or some of the people at the Church on the Way could do that. And I like that. I was still a Jew, but I would go to church with Penelope, and we would have talks afterwards. We'd go to breakfast and have sermons. Actually, she gave me my open study Bible. She gave me a Bible that has my name engraved on it. It's one of my prized possessions. She's no longer with us. But being an E.T., sitting in that theater, man, let me tell you, there was the Holy Spirit in that, if there is a Holy Spirit, or there was a cosmic entity, the cosmic force of being alive. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was because we were living in a simulation and it was just our time to feel what we felt. That theater, there was not a dry eye in the house. People were openly weeping, and when the end, the music, I mean, the bicycles go across the moon, the Amblin logo, I can't tell you how amazing it was to be in that theater. And since then, as I've moved through life, there have been experiences like that. My friend Taylor White and I, the summer I moved to Los Angeles I moved down here to go to USC. School hadn't started. I was there I stayed. We basically stayed in this. I'd never lived anywhere except Mercer Island in my bedroom. I lived in my bedroom my entire life until I turned 2 weeks after my 21st birthday. Packed up all my shit, bought a trailer hitch from my Toyota Celica, got a big U-Haul trailer, put everything I owned, all my comics, all my action figures, all my shit, packed it up, drove to LA by myself. Didn't know the first thing. I'm like, what do? I'd saved up a bunch of money. I knew I got into USC. I'd never seen USC. I'd never visited the campus. So found an apartment, found an art house theater that was near Westwood, and all the good movie theaters at the time were in Westwood. I'm like, I was looking for an apartment in Westwood because it had movie theaters. I had no idea how long. This is how insane I was when I was 21. I had no idea how long the drive was from Westwood to where USC was. Turns out it's not that long of a drive. But on the 10 freeway in the morning, when you have a foreign film class at 9 a.m., maybe not the best choice to live right by the New Art Theater. But it was an art house theater. It was like our theater, the Neptune, we had in Seattle. But that's why I wanted to live there, right across from Dolores Restaurant. And Dolores Restaurant, I'm convinced, it always had these ancient waitresses that worked there. And in my own mind, I was like, what is the secret of Dolores? Are we going to find out that this is like a coven of witches? Because everyone that worked there, all the waitresses, looked too ancient to be working at a diner. I never knew. But in my mind, I'm always making shit up like that. So to amuse myself, no? So anyway, moved across from the New Art Theater, which is great. I mean, I got to meet John Woo there once. It was a great place. They showed Rocky Horror at midnight. Does anyone even do that anymore? Does any place show Rocky Horror at midnight? Are there any virgins in the audience? No one knows. Anyway, long story short. So, movie theaters, holy places for me. Nowadays, we now live in a society, and this is me, old man, I know, send me Simpsons memes, I know, okay, old man shouting at clouds. However, when I was growing up, and you have to understand, when I started going to movies, there was a huge fundamental shift. There's the biggest sea change in cinema history happened when I was a kid. Home video. I was lucky in 1980 for my bar mitzvah. The one thing I wanted was a VCR. My grandfather had a furniture store, and he had an electronics department, so he was able to get me one at cost. Well, I had an RCA VFT 625. It was awesome. I worked, I've told this before, but I worked at the second video store that was like a video store only in the country. And it was founded by Weston Nishimura, who founded the VSDA, the Video Software Dealers Association of America. So home video, it did two things. It turned everybody in, the whole world became movie fanatics because you couldn't pick movies that you wanted to watch before then. It didn't exist. I know now it seems like a crazy thing, but for me, I was fanatical. But when people could bring movies home, that began what has reached a terrible state now. That began the despecialization of movies. And what I mean by that is not like specializing in a task or a profession, but movies were demystified. They were becoming something that they weren't special anymore. Because if you could go rent them and bring them home, you didn't have to go to a place of worship to see them. And when I was a kid, nobody talked in movies. There were no cell phones either. You went to a movie and you would watch it. Everybody would watch it. And although that's not always true, I went to certain theaters to see slasher movies specifically because people talked in movies. And to that end, Friday the 13th 3D was one of the single greatest movie-going experiences of my entire life. But anyway, so movies were holy places. But then slowly I started to notice. And it took a while. It took maybe a half a decade, or things started to change. People would be noisy in movie theaters. They brought more food sometimes with them. They would bring food from the outside. They'd bring, like, I didn't like to smell fast food in a movie theater. The only thing you wanted, because you wanted the smell of popcorn, that was part of it. You know, it was part of it. And anything that interrupted a tuna sandwich or something, I hated that. Because it showed, for me, going to a movie, again, I've talked about this a lot on the show, is you go outside yourself. You're making a choice to go outside, and you're going into a theater. It used to be, and this is where the civilization part comes in, that everybody knew. And look, I understand if you grew up and you were going to movies at grindhouses on 42nd Street in New York, it wasn't like this. But for me in Seattle and Bellevue and stuff like that, we had a pretty sophisticated, at the time, Seattle had per capita more movie theaters than any other city in the country. And we were Seattle was a huge movie-going city, which was we had an incredible film festival that's still running, starts next month, SIFF. I have a 10th Seattle International Film Festival poster hanging right over there. The same poster, by the way, that was in the movie Free Enterprise that I made, that's celebrating its 25th anniversary in a couple months. It was great. But then, as I said, things started to change. And the holiness of movie theaters went away. People, as they could take movies home, movies became less special. You didn't have to go out anymore. You could wait and see them at home. And by doing that, it fundamentally changed people's relationships with film. Because while you watch movies on television, if you could pick a movie and bring it home, but that act, even going to the video store, was still special. There was still a mystique to it. There was date night, you could take a date out and go get a movie because you were still going out and doing something. You had to make an effort. Like you had to make an effort going to a movie. Let's cut to right now. Half the time I go into movie theaters now, and it used to be in Los Angeles, you'd go to high-end theaters and call them problematic people. I mean, people that are going to be on their phones, people that are going to talk in movie theaters. Like, to me, as a civilizationist, I have watched a fundamental breakdown of overall respect people have for one another. I have a theory that it's all Nickelodeon's fault. It's the Bart Simpson effect. When I was younger, all the TV shows adults knew best. And then starting with the Simpsons in the late 80s and early 90s, and with the rise of the Nickelodeon shows and even stuff like Saved by the Bell, Zach was always smarter than Mr. Belding, unless there was an issue episode, like someone was going to do drugs. And then, of course, the adults would swoop in. But for the most part, 90s television created a generation of people where the kids were smarter than the adults. I didn't grow up in that world. I was always, to this day, I'm looking for mentors. I'm looking for people that know more than me. I never thought I would never disrespect a teacher. I mean, I watched movies where teachers were disrespected, like Mark Lester's banger of an exploitation film, Class of '84. If you haven't seen that, here, teacher. I mean, Timothy Van Patten kills it in that movie. Michael J. Fox is in that movie. If you guys haven't seen Class of '84, why haven't you? Come back and tell me. But I warn you, it's a true exploitation B movie. But it's great, and it's on Blu-ray. I have it. It's not a nice movie, I'll tell you that. But that was like, part of the horror of it was that kind of a school. And I think there was a lot of exploitation movies that had schools, students that disrespected teachers and stuff because it was so out of the ordinary. I mean, you saw it in big cities, in New York City and stuff like that. But where I came from, the idea of talking back to a teacher, you'd never do that. But in the Nickelodeon era, kids grew up, they're smarter than the adults. They're also smarter than what's on screen. They're smarter now than their college professors. They'll try and get into college. They'll get into college, and the first thing they do is become activists and yell at their professors. Why? Don't know. I mean, but I never thought that I was smarter than my elders. I also never thought I was smarter than what was on screen. The time it took for people to make those things, and when people go in today and they can't even be bothered to pay attention. I'm like, why the fuck did you pay money to come in this room? Get the fuck out. You're not only disrespecting yourself, because we all know you're a fucking idiot, but you're disrespecting all these other people that have also paid. But I know we live in a civilization where we have a fundamental lack of respect. I don't know where it came from, but I think a lot of it, I mean, social media, go back to 2012, 2013, read the works of Jonathan Haidt, you'll see, they've done the research. That's when our civilization really started to break down, and the lack of respect, you see it everywhere. I mean, the Ed Piskor situation. There are people that think it's good that he took his own life. And I find that abhorrent. I don't live in that world. I mean, I do, but I will keep fighting for civilization. That's what I'm interested in. And movie theaters represent civilization. People who are civilized, people who love art, people who love storytelling, my kind of people, your kind of people, imagination connoisseurs. Anyway, I haven't even got to my articles yet, but there you go. Movie theaters as a function of civilization. We need more of it. Couple of articles. Actually, there's 4 articles I want to read. I don't know where to start. First thing, I want to start with something from CinemaCon. And obviously, you know that CinemaCon is, well, since I've been ranting, let me see what you guys have been saying before I hit the articles, because you guys have been writing in. So, Darth Plato, our friend Darth Plato, says, "Hey, Rob, have you been watching the Shogun series at all? I am behind 3 episodes. I'm on a panel on Lance Nielsen's stream on the Outcast Creative doing a weekly review of Shogun. There are some pretty divided takes on this show. What say you?" Well, I love it. I mean, look, Darth, you could speak to the creative accuracy, the historical accuracy, but I'm loving it. I was going to hate this show. I was primed to hate this show. I love it. I'd be curious. I haven't heard anybody who doesn't like it. So I haven't really looked though, but I am behind 2 or 3 episodes, I think. The last episode that I saw, I think, was episode 3, and this week's episode 7. Maybe I'm 4 episodes behind, but I loved that. You know, I've loved it. So, Freeman Films sends in a super chat and says, "From Freeman Films, cinema is church. I've always found a movie to be more enjoyable in a theater. I wish I had seen Free Enterprise in a theater." Well, you might get your wish. Andy Elliott says, "Good evening, Rob. R.I.P. Ed Piskor. True tragedy. Total injustice. I hope she gets karma, not inciting violence. I'm losing faith in humanity fast. Take care." Freedom Film sends in another super chat and says, "I've made 2 feature films, and at both premieres, I had to endure folks talking. I had to hold back blowing up at them. I feel your pain." Okay, so I've either directed or produced 5 films that I've seen in theaters. The last one being Tango Shalom. I'm hoping White Devils will be the 6th. Yeah, that's right. Maybe 7, including, but where we had premieres, openings, and listening to people talk in a movie that you've spent all this time on, what it tells. I mean, when the filmmaker's there, it's terrible. But here's what people talking in, unless you're watching a slasher film and somebody's talking back to the screen, then they're engaged. I'm all about that. As a matter of fact, I would seek that experience out. I would seek it out because it was a lot more fun to see some slasher movies that way. And everybody, you forget how funny people can be. But when people are talking in a movie, now there are sometimes, this isn't always true, but there have been some times when I've heard people, sometimes older people, they'll husband and wife, like they're an elderly couple, they might be talking about what's going on the screen, so you can tell that they're engaged. But there are some people, like when someone's looking at their phone in the middle of a movie, not just because it lights up, but unless you're like a parent, you have a babysitter, when you pull out your, here's what, and I'm merciless about this. If you pull out your phone when you're watching a movie, you know what that says to me? You're a fucking idiot. You have no attention span. You're not interested. Get the fuck out. You're ruining, and this. I told the story of how I almost got in a fight at a classical concert in the Hollywood Bowl because some assholes came in like, meh, 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 meh. There's no consideration. No one thinks, like, I would never, like, I would never go into a movie theater. Growing up, my parents didn't even have to teach me this. I would not talk when I was watching a movie. Like, why would you do that? It shows that you're a fucking idiot. You're not paying attention. And if you're not paying attention to a movie, well, then you're probably not paying attention to most things that are important in your life because you're a raging idiot or a narcissist or probably both. And why are you there? Get the fuck out. You're not a part of civilization. You're not interested in civilization. You know? And if you were, you wouldn't be talking. And look, our entire civilization has changed. Let's go to a concert and I'm going to hold up my phone so I can get a video. I'm not gonna have the experience of watching the concert. What are you doing when you're recording a phone? You're using your phone. The sound isn't going to be good. Are you just going to prove that you were there? What are you going to do? Play a terrible video of your favorite artist? And believe me, I watch people how they hold up their phones. I'm like, I don't even know. Like, I'm pretty good at holding my phone. I can do this for a long time because I made documentary videos. So I can probably do this with my phone for a good half an hour. Just like this. But can everybody else? No. What are you doing? I don't know. Maybe, although I will say this, people have gotten better in terms of their camera work. But why are you not enjoying the concert? You're not present? You're thinking more about, oh, I've got the video to post later so I can get likes or clicks or what. So you're not really enjoying the music. Do you know who hates that more than anything? The artist. I mean, thank God for people like Dave Chappelle who take away everyone's cell phones. So one, they can't steal his material and put it up, but also it's because he wants people to be present. His entire art form is engaging with his audience. And if they have their phones, they're not listening to him. And if they're not listening to him, they're interfering with the rest of the crowd, which means they're interfering with his art. So you go, Dave Chappelle. I'm all about that. I can't believe Freeman Films, you had to deal with that. That's a bunch of bullshit. Don't like it. Not good. Let me just make sure I don't miss anything else. Freeman Film goes on to say, you're very nice. Freeman Film says, I want to thank you for keeping up the good fight and not going quietly into that good night. It was a pleasure to have you on my podcast and sharing your story. That's right. That's why I'm like, Freeman Films, I know that guy. You are a true artist. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Garrick Groover asks, do you have any doubts about Megalopolis after the mixed response to the recent screening? Apparently, it's going to be hard to get a distributor. Look, here's the thing. Obviously, he couldn't get it made with studio money. He financed it himself, and that interests me. I'm really looking forward to seeing the movie. It's Francis Coppola. So many of his movies have shaped my life. You know, a lot of his films, I haven't loved them. I've never seen The Rain People, but it's coming out from Warner Archive. I'm looking forward to seeing that. But I give him the benefit of the doubt. We don't have to love everything. I'll be very curious to see what that's going to be like. So yeah, I'm excited. Sadhu says, I thought the 3-body problem was medium. I had a hard time believing Ezra Gonzalez as Eliza Gonzalez as a scientist. The nanofiber scene was incredible. It reminded me of Michael Crichton's books. Yeah, I mean, look, I understand it doesn't hit the highs that people are wanting, but I thought it wasn't dumb, and it required the audience to pay attention. And if they make a second and third season, wait till you see where it goes. Drew Skizzy said, a couple of weeks ago you mentioned Project Hail Mary. I decided to check it out, and it was great. I hope the movie gets made, but I don't picture Ryan Gosling. Well, he's starring in it. I can understand why you don't picture him, but I think he can play the part. I think he can do it. I think he can because he's very funny. I think he's going to be kind of sardonic in the lead role. By the way, if you guys want to read a great book, a great science fiction thriller, a great fun book, read Andy Weir, who wrote The Martian. Read his Project Hail Mary. But do me a favor. Don't read anything about it. Don't read the reviews. Don't even read the flap if you get the book, and don't read the description. Trust the Bobster here. Trust your Uncle Rob. Just get Hail Mary, whether you're going to, book on tape. Okay, fine. Book on tape, or you're going to read it. Project Hail Mary is one of the most wildly entertaining books I've read in a long time. I told you when I got it, I sat down, I read the entire book in one sitting. It was that good. So, Jay Bling says, I'd say there are movies that require the big screen experience, while there are movies that are better enjoyed in a more intimate, at-home setting. Now, I understand that, but I would say this. Every movie I've ever seen in a theater is better than seeing it at home. Only because when you're in a theater, by design, the lights go down, most of your senses are focused on the screen. And I'm of the opinion, I have no psychological, I'm going by a lifetime of watching thousands of movies in a theater. And I'm going to continue to do that till the day I die. When you're in a theater, your focus is right on the screen. And if you're enraptured, as I usually am, your senses are open. Your mind is open. Your eyes and ears are literally and figuratively open. And you're taking in information, I think, in a much more effective manner because everything else has been blacked out for you other than the exit signs. So, I mean, yeah, you might be eating something, but that's just, keeping you. I don't have a problem with eating in movies. I don't. It's part of the experience. It's the sensual pleasure of whatever you're putting in your mouth, I think, is keeping your eyes and ears open even more. It's stimulating because watching a movie is not going to do nothing for your mouth, but if you're stimulating your mouth, all of your senses are stimulated to take in, to drink it all, whatever you're watching. And I think that a movie theater with a great sound and picture presentation is so immersive. That's the whole point, is it's the psychological and the mental experience of the film in a theater. And it doesn't matter whether it's a quiet drama. Like, I always talk about The Verdict. I love The Verdict. I've loved The Verdict since I first saw it. It's a quiet movie. Except, at the end, these men, it's Lindsay Krause, David Mamet's ex-wife. I mean, it's if you haven't seen The Verdict, I know now people would be like, well, Rob, it's a little slow moving. Look, man, from the time that movie opens and you see Frank, you see Paul Newman drinking in a bar and he's practically in silhouette, I'm mesmerized by this movie. That movie is way better in a theater because you're watching a human being, 40 feet tall. The blacks are black. I mean, the color black when it's silhouetted and he's in a bar. On a TV, half the time your blacks aren't quite. You got to really tweak your TV to get those rich blacks. That's why I love my OLED. I'm not gonna lie. I love seeing a properly calibrated screen. But when you go to like a Dolby Cinema at an AMC or something, or you see something in IMAX, and you get like when black is happening, it's black. And the colors are vibrant and solid. I mean, I grew up with NTSC video, which was garbage. You didn't get good blacks, which is gray. You didn't get good blues, which is hard to... And reds, man. They were all over the place. They bled. They pulsated. It's never good. Now, it's great. So, look, I will say we get the best material we can at home. I mean, it's pretty damn good. I'm astonished from where we were to where we are now. Going from, 640 by 480 to HD. If I'm watching a widescreen movie, getting to see it at 4096 by 1716 pixels, woohoo! Give it to me, baby. Get those nits up. I mean, I'm telling you, it's good stuff. So that's great, but it doesn't replace going to see Dune 2 in a gigantic theater and having that experience. Avatar. Take your pick going to see a Mission Impossible movie in IMAX. It's great, man. It's great. And psychologically, it's awesome. So, I mean, this show's going to last forever. I'm just saying. Let's cut to my first article that I want to read. Woo-hoo! So, this is from Anthony D'Alessandro. This was published today at 3:23 in the afternoon. Studio and exhibitor execs on what will bring more global audiences back to theaters. You don't have to put a lot of espresso machines in the lobby. CinemaCon. Espresso machines are pretty good, though. I'm from Seattle. You can always use more espresso. Anthony D'Alessandro wrote this. The global box office saw some encouraging rebound in 2023 and is off to a better-than-expected start in the first quarter of this year. Yeah, because the strikes. But there's been concern about a downward trend in per capita admissions. And not just because of the strike's disruption of the Hollywood theatrical pipeline, but audiences' movie-going tendencies have changed coming out of COVID. How to solve? Well, it takes two to tango, specifically between exhibitors and studios in order to rally movie-going back to pre-pandemic heyday levels. Last year's near $34 billion global box office was still 15% behind 2017 to 2019 average. It all comes down to both studios and theater chains working together to share information, said Paramount SVP International Distribution Helen Moss. To elevate something new you can't get at home. I actually agree with this. And the first is proper presentation. That means bright bulbs and great sound, not blown out speakers. Presentation is everything. The single reason to go see a movie in a theater is the presentation. If you fall down on presentation, you're dead in the water. And you know what's proven that? Oppenheimer and Dune 2. And to a certain extent, Godzilla x Kong. People know the power of Dune 2 and Oppenheimer. In the Los Angeles area, it was really hard to get IMAX tickets the first couple of weeks. People know. Presentation is everything. Even Oskar Schindler said, not the work, not the work. Presentation. It all comes down to both studios and theater chains working together to share information. Moss's remarks were made today during the CinemaCon Las Vegas session, Changing Tastes and Changing Landscapes, moderated by Deadline International box office editor, our friend Nancy Tartaglione, who I love to read her articles, and I've never once thanked her. So thank you, Nancy. I actually wish I was at CinemaCon just to meet you. Also on the panel were Rebecca Carey, EVP, Head of Business Operations at International Searchlight Pictures, Miguel Mayer, COO Cineopolis, and Toshi Yamasaki, CEO and President, Toho Toa Company Limited. Man, I would love to have met you. Godzilla, Godzilla, Godzilla. Moss exclaimed that the theatrical experience, by the way, I heard a story, I don't know if this is true or not, that because of Legendary releasing Godzilla x Kong, the new Empire, that we're not going to be able to get Godzilla -1 on home entertainment on disc until 2025. Kind of sucks. Moss explained that the theatrical experience needs to be sold on the onus of what is it that money can't buy. I'm part of this event and you're not. Okay, that's dumb, Moss. I don't want to rip on you, but Helen Moss, of course, you're coming from Paramount. Not a lot of geniuses working at Paramount, but your home video department's great. But I would say, Helen Moss, it is not about what is it money can't buy. I'm part of this event and you're not. Movie theaters should not be about FOMO. Movie theaters should encourage everybody to go, not that they're part of an event and you're not. That's dumb. You want everybody to come. And you know how you get everyone to come? Of course, you're saying that because you're working at Paramount. You're not an exhibitor. I get it. I understand. But you might get sold. You might lose your job. So I'm sympathetic to that. But it's not about FOMO. It's about presentation and making good movies. Because presentation don't mean shit unless you make good movies. And finally, I'm getting Chinatown from you beautiful people in 4K. It's been online, but I haven't been able to get it on disc. So thank you, Paramount, if you're still here. At least that's coming out. It's about great stories well told. Great stories that are engaging on every level. But most importantly, when you're going to a movie theater, presentation rules the roost. Great sound, great picture, period. That's why people go. Otherwise, they're going to stay home. Because you know what? You can spend 20, 30 grand and you can have a theatrical experience in your house. You can. And for far less even. But 20 or 30 grand, you can really, really whip up something that'll impress your neighbors. Or they'll hate you because you're subwoofer. But either way, Carey said, there are touch points which don't cost that much money to get potential repeat customers. The exec specifically cited knowledgeable ushers that ArcLight Cinemas in Southern California used to employ during pre-COVID operations. Example, a theater employee would introduce the movie, educate the audience on some facts about the filmmaker or the film, and ensure them that their sound and visual experience would be under their care. Yes, my favorite theater. Had the Cinerama Dome. It also had the ArcLight. They were attached. And yes, somebody would come in, an usher would come in and introduce the film, say something, give us a little chit-chat, tell us that they're going to be watching for the first 10 minutes to make sure what? The picture and sound were good. That's what the ArcLight did. That's why I paid an extra $5 to go see movies there. And I don't think I ever had a bad experience, ever, at the ArcLight. Where's the ArcLight now? The pandemic killed it. That hasn't been open. My favorite theater in LA, I cannot tell you how many movies I saw there. You know, even something like I'd get up on a Saturday morning with my friend Dave Hargrove and go see the first show of It Follows because it was playing there. I mean, come on, man. You don't have to put a lot of espresso machines in the lobby. There are little things to draw people back in, added Carrie. See, anyway, Moss praised those exhibitors who leaned into selling the 4DX of it all on Paramount's summer hit, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, with pizza smells for different parts of the movie. It was something new and inventive. It's a gimmick. No one cares. At the end of the day, it might be fun. You can take kids to do that. But why not, it's picture and sound. I guess that's presentation. I'm not going to rip on that. I've never seen a movie in that format. Not my thing. But if the kids love it and it brought people in and it made Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem a hit, I know Rayora loves it. There you go. It's differences such as that which take the movie-going experience to another stratosphere. Other big exhibitor tie-ins for studio movies of late include a 5-song karaoke at multiplexes for the release of Paramount's Bob Marley, One Love. Well, that could either be fun or a nightmare, but okay. Again, they're not talking about great movies and the actual presentation. It's gimmicks. Gimmicks don't work in the long run. Yeah, you might have a Dune, a Dune popcorn bucket, but you know what? You didn't make enough when it went viral to give everybody one that they wanted. Anyway, while studios have access to exhibitors' pre-sales stateside to assist with their film campaigns, Moss said that having that access on offshore territories is sketchy. Knowledge is power, and having the access to such data share would help studios in amending their marketing campaigns. In the States, for example, it's not unheard of for studios to double down on pushing a movie digitally in zip codes where pre-bookings are lagging. Sometimes that last-minute drive makes all the difference. Other topics explored in today's session included Yamazaki explaining that while Japan is back to 85% of 2019 pre-pandemic box office levels, a lot of that stems from consistent flow of local Japanese films, a stream that didn't falter during the pandemic as Japan's cinemas only closed for 2 months in 2020. To me, Japan's the height of Western civilization. I've never been there. It's my dream. It's my dream, Ray Kinsella. It's my dream. Can you make that kind of a dream happen? Do you know a place? Do you know where I can go? I'd need about $100,000 to buy die-cast Japanese robots if I went, which is, kind of a hindrance for me. But I want to go. At present, that's 15% missing from Japan's box office, could be backfilled with more Hollywood movies, which many anticipate will come in 2025. As far as markets that rebounded last year, many gave a shout-out to Italy, with its black and white local feminist comedy hit, There's Still Tomorrow, which made close to $43 million. In Italy, that's huge. Carrie pointed out that it takes Italy 1 or 2 local films to push its percentage up hugely. Italy has been a sluggish movie-going market even by pre-COVID standards, its last box office height point being in 2010. The exec believed that the movie was an anomaly. Oh, wait. Yeah, height. Okay. The exec believed that movie was an anomaly, not something that indicates a trend in Italy. However, thanks to the title, a lot of people went back to theaters. Oh, they're still talking about There's Still Tomorrow. I get it. However, thanks to the title, a lot of people went back to theaters, saw trailers and posters, and went 2 or 3 times. Meyer, for his part, urged all of the businesses, starting with production, to focus more on the importance and weight of the international box office. Which I understand. I mean, everybody gets that. One of the reasons that the studio model of making movies has changed so drastically is because studios are now serving the international marketplace. Why do we not see studios making comedies like they used to? Because comedies, when I was a kid, there was so many studio comedies. Arthur coming out from, Warner Brothers. Stripes coming out from Columbia. Tootsie was another Columbia movie. Paramount had many every studio was making comedies because comedies were big business. Comedies are all but dead theatrically, and the reason is that studios, because comedies do not travel. One person's joke is another person's horror. That's why half the things I want to say I can't say on here because I would get canceled because a lot of people wouldn't find them funny. But that's why comedies don't travel. They're too colloquial. So if you make a big comedy here in the States, you can't sell it internationally because comedies are so different around the world. And that's why comedies have sort of died at the studio level. That doesn't mean they don't make them. But, you know, the days of seeing somebody like an Eddie Murphy or take your pick, you know, whatever comic you liked to follow. But, you know, Eddie Murphy had a great run. He could jump from something like 48 Hours to go to Beverly Hills Cop. And, you know, he built that career for a long time. I mean, I got the knife. I went and saw The Golden Child, even though it wasn't great, but Eddie Murphy was a huge star. Actually, I probably liked Golden Child more than most because of Charlotte Lewis. But anyway, Jim Carrey. You know, when Jim Carrey bursts on the scene with like an Ace Ventura Pet Detective. By the way, if you want to watch something really interesting, look up the clip of Jim Carrey when Siskel and Ebert first saw. I think it was Ace Ventura. They just totally destroyed it. But then as Jim Carrey did more films, they came around and they realized he's kind of was a modern day clown, and brought a new revelation to that kind of comedy. And they apologized to him. They did a show where they apologized to Jim Carrey. I didn't know this, and that they had done this, and he was very affected, very moved by it. And I saw that clip on YouTube. It's worth seeking out and checking out because it's neat. It's neat to hear him say that. But that's why the studio business, that's why we get superhero movies and action movies. No studio is going to make The Verdict. You're not going to see Columbia and 20th Century Fox, or now 20th Century Studios. They're not going to team up and make a movie like my beloved All That Jazz anytime soon. Well, one, because Columbia doesn't exist, and neither does Fox in its form. It would be Sony and 20th Century Studios, and that ain't never going to happen. Although, that's not true, because it did with the Marvel Spider-Man movies. So maybe it would happen. I'm talking out of my ass, and I just disproved what I was saying in the same sentence. But anyway, what that says about me, I don't know, but you still get my drift. They're not going to make those movies anymore. And it's too bad, because studios used to have, there was a wide diversity of films that were coming out from studios, dramas, comedies, biopics, historical epics, all those things. And you could see all different kinds of movies. We're not getting that anymore. And we haven't got that for a long time. I mean, unfortunately, the studios, look, it ain't show friends, it's show business. And I get it. Business has changed. It's a global marketplace. You don't make $1 billion worth of movie just releasing it in America. You make $1 billion releasing it globally. Now, unfortunately, to me, if you make a movie that, say, you make A Smile for 18 million, we've talked about 20 million, and it makes 200 million globally, 200 million plus, that's a worthwhile effort. You know, I mean, making 30% on your money, any investor will tell you that's good money. It's good business. But that's not enough for, you know, Vanguard and BlackRock now and the real economic powers around the world, which is too bad. Because, you know, I'll tell you something. I'm a big admirer of producer Roy Lee, and I've talked about him on the show. And Roy Lee is a producer. He was the first person to bring Asian films, J-horror, to America. He got the rights to things like The Grudge and The Ring and brought them to America. He also got the rights to Infernal Affairs, which was remade in the United States as The Departed. And Roy Lee, if you look him up on the IMDb, it's shocking how many great projects. The Lego Movie. He told me personally, he told me himself, I asked him, I said, how'd you get what's the deal with Lego? And he goes, I was gaming. I was playing Lego video games, and I was like, I love the way they did the characters. So he looked into the rights. Rest is history. Him and Dan Lin, Warner Brothers Dan Lin, who's now taken over Netflix. These two guys could run Hollywood if they wanted to. But anyway, so if you look in a theater, if you want to look to what I think the future of Hollywood is, a guy like Roy Lee, he's an executive producer on all of Legendary's Godzilla movies. Smart man. So he has, check it out, he has Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire, and in theaters, he also produced Late Night with the Devil. Now, Late Night with the Devil is not going to make $100 million. But Late Night with the Devil was the largest opening for an IFC, independent feature channel, IFC, in their history. Now, it only opened at $2.5 million. Its hold was good. I mean, it's going to go on to Shudder. But so IFC makes this movie, and Roy Lee was responsible for both of those movies. I mean, not entirely responsible, but what I'm saying is, as an executive producer, he had a gigantic tentpole movie in the theaters, making hundreds of millions of dollars, and he had a banger of an indie horror film because that man finds the greatest low budget or lower budget fare. I mean, that guy, you know what he produced? Barbarian. He's got a couple of movies coming out he's got a movie in production called Companion. I read the script to it. It's basically a one location movie. I couldn't turn the pages fast enough. I've talked about it on this channel. Whatever he finds scripts, he just sends them to me and goes, "You should read this." And I mean, he sent me some bangers, man. And I'm like, where do you find this stuff? Like, if you're getting, like, his track record for screenplays is, in my estimation, I've never read screenplays coming from one guy. I'm like, why aren't you running every studio? Why don't you just go find all this great work? I don't know. But the point is, you can have a movie making hundreds of millions of dollars. You can have Godzilla and Kong and Late Night with the Devil in theaters at the same time. Why aren't the studios doing that? Why are they only doing one kind of business? Why aren't the studios developing brand new talent? You know, I mean, Zach Krieger, who made Barbarian, they made the deal for Weapon. You know, they're making whatever that is. No one will send me that script. Fuckers. I really want to read it. If anyone has a copy of Weapon, I don't think anybody does, but if anybody does, the thing that I most want to read most right now is Zach Krieger's script for Weapon. Send me it. Anybody? Send me your scripts. Weapon. That's what I want to read. I don't want to read anything else except Mr. Bingham's script. That's it. We've talked about that already. We're going to talk about it soon. But send me Weapon. Anybody have Weapon? I'll be your best friend. And I won't give it to anybody. I just want to read it for my own edification, see what's out there. But why not do that? Why don't the studios all have their own Blumhouse? They've gotten rid of their indie divisions, or Fox Searchlight's now being, pardon me, it's not Fox Searchlight, just Searchlight. Searchlight is being overseen by one guy that's also overseeing all of Disney. You know, I mean, I'm not to say, it's like, come on. Why aren't there people, you know, you have Jason Blum teaming up with Atomic Monster, which is James Wan's company. They're teaming up. You've got the Annabelle franchise and whatever Blumhouse is doing. Now, I'd say that James Wan maybe makes more erudite, or his grasp of horror might be slightly better than Blumhouse's, but hey, they're making films, and they're making films when Blumhouse makes a good movie at their, you know, when Lee Wanell, James Wan's partner, when Lee Wanell, co-creator of the Saw franchise, makes Invisible Man, there's Alex Kurtzman in his Mummy, not exactly an auspicious debut for the Dark Universe, but you make The Invisible Man for $8 million, it's a banger. There's your Dark Universe, and now Lee Wanell's he'll probably single-handedly make the Dark Universe. You never know. But why aren't studios doing that? Why can't you do both? I don't know. Makes no sense to me. But anyway, this article is about moviegoing. Now, I want to read about George Miller. Article about George Miller in Deadline today, too. Let's read about it. Now, even though somebody, you know, like I said, somebody told me that the Furiosa is the Phantom Menace of the Mad Max universe, I'm not gonna take, you know what? I don't believe anybody anymore because no one knows shit because they haven't seen what they're talking about. They've seen it, but they don't know. They've only seen movies from the last 10 years. They don't know fuck all. No one's seen the original Mad Max. I mean, give me a break. No one in Hollywood, no one that works at a studio other than Steve Asbell, who's president of 20th Century Studios, has even seen the original Mad Max, much less the original Mad Max when they spoke in the actual Australian. You know, the original Mad Max was dubbed into American English. It's true. You got to go seek it now. What you see on home video is the original Australian language track. Yeah, they speak Australian. Americans are too stupid that they did that. They dubbed Mad Max when it first came out here. What tools we Americans can be. Anyway, let's see what George Miller, director of Fury Road, director of Furiosa, director of The Witches of Eastwick, director of Happy Feet 2, producer of Happy Feet 1. Come on, man. Director of, what? Say it with me now. Lorenzo's Oil. You're going to go get it, right? All right, what does they have to say? This comes from Nancy Tartaglione. See, if it's not Mr. D'Alessandro, it's Nancy Tartaglione. Here it is. Australian filmmaker George Miller, whose origin story Furiosa will world premiere at the Cannes Film Festival next month before Warner Brothers begins its global rollout May 22nd, says he's still making maybe they're not going to show that. Maybe they're not going to show. I thought they were going to show Furiosa, but if the world premiere has to be at Cannes, maybe they will show a little bit of Deadpool and Wolverine. Who knows? I'm reading an article, not talking. Hang on. Deep breath. Australian filmmaker George Miller, whose origin story Furiosa will world premiere at the Cannes Film Festival next month before Warner Brothers begins its global rollout May 22nd, says he's still making Mad Max movies because they're very addictive. Miller was speaking at CinemaCon on Monday in Las Vegas, where he received the International Career Achievement in Filmmaking Award. During a discussion with Warner Brothers' president of international theatrical distribution, Andrew Cripps, Miller looked back at his path from medical doctor, that's right, he was a real doctor, to director and delved into some of the history of the 1979 classic Mad Max, as well as sharing some insights into the upcoming Furiosa. Miller, who was always interested in cinema, originally trained as a doctor and kept practicing even after he'd made Mad Max, because even though it was successful, I didn't think I had it in me to be a filmmaker. Eventually, however, I kept going, says Mr. Miller. The impetus for the original Mad Max was sparked when he was a junior doctor and met a policeman who had attended his own son's fatal accident. Oh, man. It really stuck with me, and one thing led to another, and we ended up writing a film. The idea was to make a movie that relies entirely upon visual language. It was not, however, originally conceived to be set in an apocalyptic world. But when Miller found it was almost impossible to do action sequences in the streets of Melbourne in the city in the modern day, the idea was to set it in a dystopian future simply because we could play in empty streets. Now that, my friends, is producing. That's producing. We'd play in empty streets, and that was really a lucky thing because accidentally the film, which otherwise would have been a present-day naturalistic film, turned out to be more allegoric unwittingly, and that's what led to Mad Max, and that's why I'm still doing them, because they're very addictive. Miller, whose credits also include such Oscar-winning films as Happy Feet and Babe, said he had hatched the idea for Furiosa while prepping 2015's Mad Max Fury Road, which went on to become a global hit and win 6 Oscars. He explained, in order to tell the story of Fury Road, we had to understand everything about what we see on screen. Not only the backstory of every character, but every prop, every vehicle. It wasn't a Bible. We wrote the story of Furiosa in the 15 or 16 years of her life before we meet her in Fury Road. We wrote a story about Max in the year before he got there, and so on. They ended up being a screenplay, and one was a novella. We did it just for the actors and the crew so they could understand it. So when Fury Road worked, I thought, this is a rich story to tell. It's different. You don't want film to be a repetition of what you've just done. It has to be uniquely familiar, as I like to say, and that led to Furiosa. And here he is. If you want to get this on Deadline, you can. He's talking. Anya Taylor-Joy plays the titular character first played by Charlize Theron in Fury Road. Miller said he'd seen Taylor-Joy in Edgar Wright's Last Night in Soho. There's something about her, something mystical, but accessible. I learned that she was somebody very, very disciplined and also had been a ballet dancer, as was Theron. Having also worked on Happy Feet with dancers, Miller said he understood the emotional discipline as well as the physical discipline they had, so all of that led to Anya being Furiosa. For the role of Dr. Dementis, woo, woo. I wonder if Dr. Dementis sings fish heads in the movie. Miller said he'd never thought of Chris Hemsworth until we met, and we talked. I realized he was somebody who has a lot more dimension to him than I had initially thought. I think for me he is, as they say in Australia, the complete article. I love that. The complete article. So you go, George Miller. He's discovered his mojo, and I love hearing that. These filmmakers are making movies because they want to. How many auteurs do we have left? Now, I know some of you are going to find this next article critical, but you know what? Or you're going to criticize me for using it. I don't care. I'm like Tommy Lee Jones in The Fugitive. I didn't kill my wife. I don't care. I've got an article about Woody Allen. Woody Allen's 50th film, Coup de Chance. Woody Allen, incredibly influential in my life. I thought There's a big joke about Woody Allen and what happened. Back, we made Free Enterprise in the 90s, and I thought that was settled. 2 states investigated him. There was no wrongdoing discovered. It was dredged up. I'm a Woody Allen fan. So there you go. Come at me, bro. Anyway, let me read this article because this is interesting. Woody Allen's made 50 movies. He's made 50 films. And before that, he had a long-running career as a writer, a comedian, a stand-up, all kinds of things. So I'm reading this because he's a filmmaker worthy of respect, and he's had so much influence on American filmmaking. Woody Allen isn't exactly sure what he wants to do next in the movie industry, as he feels, quote, all the romance of filmmaking is gone. In an interview with Airmail published online Saturday, the director was asked about his latest film, Coup de Chance. Or is it Coup de Chance? Coup de Chance. Coup de Chance? Coup de Chance? I don't know. I don't speak French. His 50th feature and the delay it faced for release in North American markets. It doesn't matter to me whether I could distribute it here or not, Allen said. Once I make it, I don't follow it anymore. Distribution is no longer what it was. Now distribution is 2 weeks in a cinema, and then that's it. I mean, Annie Hall played in movie houses in New York for a little bit over a year. It'd be in one theater for 6-7 months, and then somebody would pick it up, and it would hang around another few months. The whole business has changed. Now, I would say that that's true. That was true. Empire Strikes Back played in the theater that I went and saw it at, the UA 150. If you look up the Empire Strikes Back Cinema 150 or UA 150 theater in Seattle, Washington, Lucasfilm made a special poster because Empire, I believe, Star Wars might have played at one other theater longer. I think it was the second longest run Star Wars had worldwide was at the UA 150 theater in Seattle. But I think Empire had its longest run, single run, at the UA 150. Don't quote me, but you can look it up and you can find the poster that was made. Anyway, it doesn't matter to me whether I get distributed here or not, Allen said. Once I make it, I don't follow it anymore. Annie Hall played in movie houses in New York for a little bit over a year. It'd be in one theater for 6-7 months, and somebody would pick it up, and it would hang around another few months. The whole business has changed, and not in an appealing way. All the romance of filmmaking is gone. It's true because movies, especially in cities, when you couldn't get them at home and you weren't going to see them on TV, they were as important as museums or as going to the theater to see a play or a concert. Movies they were held in that regard. So especially if you lived in urban areas, they weren't just entertainment, they became cultural events as well. Especially, I mean, I remember my mom took me to see Coming Home, which is a Jane Fonda film about a woman who has a relationship with a man who was wounded in Vietnam. And I remember like all of her friends were talking about this movie, and it was an important film to go see. And it was part of the culture. You had to go so you can talk about these things. Movies aren't, I mean, people talk about them, and obviously I'm in the online pundit space, so we're talking about movies all the time, but they don't, part of the reason is that the movies that are getting made by studios do not have the cultural impact. I mean, Barbie becomes a thing, but, you know, it's not permeating the culture. Even though Barbenheimer was a big deal, was the movie Barbie itself part of the cultural zeitgeist? I guess we'll know a year from now. But when movies played for a year, when Annie Hall played for a year, which also won Best Picture at the Academy Awards, beat Star Wars, by the way, it becomes a cultural event. Movie going is not that anymore. We're missing that cultural component, I think. Your mileage may vary. In February, The Hollywood Reporter exclusively reported that MPI Media Group would release Coup de Chance in the U.S. on April 5th and on digital VOD on April 12th, following its debut at the Venice Film Festival in September 2003. This came after Samzat links to Coup de Chance began circulating among U.S. fans. That's how I watched Roman Polanski's movie about the Dreyfus affair. I watched that on a link. I feel bad, but hey, no one's I would pay for it. But I really wanted to see that master's film, and I couldn't watch it any other way. So there was a link, and I watched it. What are you going to say? Look, man, I'd buy it. If I could buy it, I would buy it. There's no plans to release this film in the United States, so I can't buy it. But I'm not going to go to my grave not seeing it. So there you go. Anyway, Allen has previously contemplated his future in filmmaking, saying in 2022 that a lot of the thrill is gone for him in the streaming era. And in his latest interview, he shared that he was still on the fence about it. I don't want to have to go out and raise money. I find that a pain in the neck. The Rainy Day in New York director said, but if someone shows up and calls and says we want to back the film, then I would seriously consider it. I'd probably not have the willpower to say no because I have so many ideas. In recent years, Allen's popularity in the U.S. has significantly decreased amid the Me Too movement and resurfaced allegations of sexual abuse from his adopted stepdaughter, Dylan Farrow. Allen has denied the accusations and was not charged by the Connecticut State's Attorney following a 1993 investigation. Yeah, that was done 31 years ago. He was exonerated of wrongdoing, not just by this Connecticut State's Attorney. However, the filmmaker has remained a polarizing figure and ended up having his $68 million four-film deal with Amazon Studios canceled. Since then, he has had a difficult time finding distribution for his recent titles. Elsewhere, in his interview with Airmail, Allen was asked about the idea of being canceled in society. By the way, I love this. This is Woody Allen. Someone asked me about cancel culture, and I said, if you're going to be canceled, this is the culture that you want to be canceled from. He added, because who wants to be a part of this culture? Well, I still do, but I understand where he's coming from. And, after what he's gone through in his life, and I know a lot of people. There are a lot of people. But anyway, I didn't read that because I wanted to get into a Woody Allen debate. But he's a filmmaker that's been working and making theatrical features now from the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2010s, the teens, and now deep into, he's going to make it 25 years into the 21st century. He's one of our most important filmmakers we've ever had. Alfred Hitchcock only made 53 features, and he never won an Academy Award, which is really a shame, and he should have. Anyway, let me see if I can catch up with what you guys are saying. A tip comes in from the R&B Appreciation Society. Happy birthday, R&B. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's so funny. You guys crack me up. I love that you aren't going to give it up. God bless you. Scott Bartholomew says, Wrath of Khan was an experience in theaters. Oh, man, it was. We were all crying at the end of it. It was great seeing Wrath of Khan 4 times in one day in a movie theater. Heck yeah. Kenneth Colton's here. Hey, Kenneth, how are you? I've appreciated your messages of late. Thank you. Speaking of movies, I just got my pre-sale tickets for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Hashtag Apes on Horses. My man. As everyone knows, there's only one thing that's better than apes in movies, and that is talking apes on horseback with rifles. Come on, it makes everything better. I'm really excited. I think it's going to be great. And once again, Steve Asbell, the quiet king of franchises, the president of 20th Century Studios. By the way, go see First Omen. That movie is better than it has any right to be. It did not disappoint. You go, Steve. And as Devin Faraci put it, I saw he tweeted that the movie, I forgive me, I don't remember the name of the director, but that director has a future. Marco Esquindoles says, does Alien Romulus concern you that it opens in August, which can be a throwaway month for doing movies? Listen, no, all that used to be true. I don't think it's true anymore. I think that they were looking for a place that gave it some room to move. August releases are not necessarily the most expensive releases. And as far as franchises go, I don't think you have to worry about it being August. I just hope. Okay. I don't know how much of this show has been missed. But once again, this was not my doing. This was YouTube. So I apologize. I don't know what was going on, but I just noticed that my stream cut off again. YouTube has been doing this. Maybe they just don't like me. I don't know. I know that my stream is very strong. It says I have an excellent connection. My upload speeds are great. I just think that YouTube, for whatever reason, very odd. So I apologize if I've missed, if anyone didn't get, I just read Marco's very generous $20 super chat. If you didn't get it, if you didn't hear it, I apologize. I don't know. I can't tell. I just looked up and noticed that things were not working, which fucking sucks. And YouTube, you got to stop this. Maybe it's a denial of service attack on me. Joe Panora says, have the death of malls been a huge catalyst for theaters faltering? You know what? I think it's all kind of a collective. I think collectively that might have something to do with it. You know, because malls were definitely a gathering place. And I think online businesses, which really killed malls, that was part of it. You'd go to the mall, especially the youth. Look, I am so glad I'm not a teenager in this day and age, because a lot of I worked in malls or across from malls. I had friends that worked in malls. I had girlfriends that worked in malls. I'd go see movies in malls. The gathering places. I mean, that whole economy is gone. So I think it probably does. I mean, I've never read anything specifically about that, but I bet probably so. Yeah, I maybe so. Anonymous sends in a tip and says, yesterday I saw Gone with the Wind at a movie theater. It was the most wow, where'd you see? I would love that. It was the most engrossing cinematic experience of my life. On the big screen, every facet of the filmmaking overwhelmed my senses. This would not have happened had I seen the movie at home. Man, I'm with you. I mean, that film, Gone with the Wind, was a 39, same year as Wizard of Oz. So seeing that, the colors and it was, I mean, obviously when you see it now, it's clearly from a different era, but it's an overwhelming experience. It truly is. I mean, you don't see colors like that. You don't see costumes like that. You don't see acting like that. I'm so glad that you got to see it in a theater, because man, what a great treat. What a treat to see something like that. If you ever get a chance to go see something like Gone with the Wind, or you get to see Lawrence of Arabia, or any kind of a well-known classic film in a theater, go see it. Go see it. Do it. What a great... Now I want to know where did you go to see it? A super chat from John from New York, a $20 super chat. Thank you for that, John. For me, Rob, the theater is the only place I find myself giving a film I wouldn't otherwise see or skip over in streaming because of the glut of content a chance. I don't see what this word. I don't know why this is coming through. Late Night with the Devil is what you're saying. Oh, example. Number 4. I'm a Prince fan. I should have seen this. For example, Late Night with the Devil, a film I saw and I loved in theaters. So Late Night with the Devil, the horror film, again, a great example of a movie that played really, really well with a crowd. People loved it. And I know, I'm glad I saw it in a theater. The 70s milieu that they recreate's really, really cool. So, yeah, I can't recommend that highly enough. Rwix123 says, hey, Rob, I'm an actor in LA and it's been super slow. A lot of people are totally broke. I know you know some producers. Will it pick up? The real problem is it's not just, it's the entire business is a mess. People are wondering how they're going to make money. I can't say that I can give you, I can't be optimistic about picking up. I mean, even we're finishing up White Devils, and even I don't know what's next. That's why doing the audio drama, crowdfunding it, see if it works. Taking a page. I haven't crowdfunded I've never crowdfunded something myself ever before. I've been part of other people's crowdfundings and we've done very well. I don't even know, but I will say this. Our drama that we're doing is SAG, and we want it to be WGA, but they don't really know yet how that's going to work. It's pretty funny, but SAG's changing their rules for podcasts and things like that. So we're paying our actors SAG, and there's a lot of them. So it's SAG rates, although they're not great for voiceovers, but we're still paying them. But like everything, I think the future is you've got to make your own stuff. And I know that's hard, but I think really people have to do that. I think. T'pow. There's no apostrophe there, so I don't know if it's a Vulcan thing or not. The theater has always been an extremely intimate place, thanks to my own dad. Do you think there's a finite timetable of theaters, or will they die? That's a good question. I mean, I think that cinema, and I've said this before, is the art form of the 20th century. I think interactivity and gaming, in whatever its permutations, wherever it's going to go with the development of Unreal Engine and AI and all of that, and the fact that our civilization has now become, I mean, we are living in a very narcissistic time. Now, I think like Gen Z, incredibly, a bunch of raging, jackbooted thug narcissists, they all want to be Marxists because life's hard and no one wants to work anymore. I think the younger generation that's coming up might be a little different. But I'm kidding, by the way. I kid. I think that what we're seeing, to be honest, is people are no longer looking out. You know, they're looking in. They're looking at themselves. They've got their Black Mirrors. They've got all of these things, and it's coming to them. Life is coming to them. And I think what's going to happen is, unless there's a revolution where youth, because movie going as a habit begins when you're young. Some people pick it up later when they retire or whatever, they get older. But for the most part, movie going is a young man's or young woman's or young person's game. And I think that's, if you don't pick up the habit when you're young, and kids aren't. Kids are more enamored of their tablets and their games and their phones and TikTok and Instagram. I mean, I'm enamored of these things. I find them, I watch more YouTube, mostly long form content. I mean, yeah, I'll admit it. I love watching Joe Rogan because I like listening to his interviews. And I find myself, whether it's the trigonometry guys that I get called right wing for watching, which is weird, or there's a heretics, or I'll watch Starship model building channels, like pornography. Some people like porn. I like watching Starship model channels. People building models. I like learning how to use my airbrush. And that's not a euphemism. I mean, I really like learning how to use my airbrush. It doesn't mean anything else. But I'm watching more and more and more YouTube, and I watch specific shows like a Shogun, like a Three Body Problem, like a Griselda, or something. Or like I've been watching with Elizabeth the show The Resident that's canceled. I can see why people get sucked in, especially network shows that are on network shows. Here's something I've learned. Here's some insight I've gleaned into entertainment. Like a network show like The Resident. I like medical shows. There's an inherent draw to any medical show. When you're watching without commercials, it's 45 minutes. So, and the way the stories are told, and The Resident's pretty good. I like the characters. The way the story's parceled out, it's so addictive and it's so binge worthy because you can watch like 4 episodes in 3 hours, and that's pretty great. So when if I'm tired or something, and I'm a night owl, I stay up till 2 and 3 in the morning, and then get up at 9, or get up at 8:30, depending on the dogs, whenever they get me up. But I have no problem staying up late and getting up early. You can't do the crime. You can't do the time. You shouldn't do the crime. Whatever that means. I forget. But I can understand 4 episodes at a stretch. It's old TV, bingeable, very bingeable. But in terms of movies, I'd like to believe that theaters will stick around. But things change. The center will not hold. unless a generation comes along that loves movie going. I think people like going to the movies, but the reverence for movies, and I'll tell you this, and this is not a criticism. I know people are going to get mad at me. People today, especially young people, are not in love with cinema. They're in love with a certain kind of film. And it's far more like when I was younger, genre films were not what everybody was watching. It's become inverted. And the thing is, as much as I like comic book movies, as much as I like great science fiction, as much as I like horror, action, thrillers, those were never the movies I would find myself rewatching over and over again, even as a kid. You know, I think about my favorite movies that are still my favorite movies. I saw All That Jazz when I was 12. It's one of my favorite films. I probably watched it 50 times. Same with The Godfather. Same with The Verdict. You know, my favorite movies are not these genre films because genre movies, as much as I like them, they're flights of fancy. I would much rather watch the Cameron Crowe double feature of Jerry Maguire and Almost Famous. Almost Famous is one of my most favorite movies of all time. Scorsese's movies, whether it's Color of Money or King of Comedy from the 80s, you know, or something, or Goodfellas and Casino. I could watch those two movies forever. Movies about people have always interested me more. Those movies are gone. I mean, people will watch them, you know, you'll and eventually watch them, but they're not resonating. There are not a lot of movie channels that are going back and looking at classic cinema. And when I always talk about Francois Truffaut, I was talking about a movie he made, The Mississippi, with Jean-Paul Belmondo and Catherine Deneuve, a movie I haven't seen that's coming out on home video, which, by the way, I don't know this movie. No one cares. Most of the movies that I have in my movie collection, if I were to say what they are, like on the John Campea show, our audience wouldn't know them. Because cinema as an art form is gone. In our culture, it's gone. It's not entirely gone, but for the most part, it's gone. Movies as entertainment are here. I don't know how long they're going to be here for, because the movies as entertainment, Star Wars, Marvel, it's not a very long list. So when those movies are letting everybody down, like I'll watch The Mandalorian and Grogu, but I don't care. I don't care. There's not going to be anything in that movie that's going to surprise me. I mean, look, I liked Rogue One. You know, that was fun. That was interesting. I loved Andor. That was giving me something I haven't seen. But everything, I love the MCU. Loved it. How many hot toys do I have of MCU figures surrounding me right now? A lot. I love the MCU. I love comic books. You know, Marvel. There's Marvel omnibuses all around me. But the Marvel, I can't believe that this franchise that I love so much, certainly not bulletproof. I mean, if Deadpool and Wolverine isn't fun, and I see that as a one-off, but if Captain America: Brave New World, and if Fantastic Four is not good, I'm out. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm out. The Marvels was the first MCU movie I didn't buy. I have all the steelbooks. Just because I was collecting. It was fun to collect them. Not fun. I bought Thor: Love and Thunder and Quantumania out of... I'll never watch them again. I never thought that would be the case. So even entertainment, these entertainments, if they're not good, there's not going to be a reason for people to go to the theater. And certainly all of cinema is not that. No one's going to go see I Saw the Devil and keep cinemas alive. And the studios are not even making those stalwart, those tentpole properties. And by the way, you have half the audience that's interested in Joker, that made Joker a $1 billion hit, already going, I'm not going to go see a musical. I don't want to see that. Like, our audiences, we're so jaded, we won't give Todd Phillips. You might not have liked Joker, but people are already not giving him the benefit of the doubt. Doesn't Joker give you the benefit of the doubt to see Folie à Deux? I mean, I would think so. Our community doesn't even do that anymore because we've been let down. And you know, movies are only as good as they're going to be. And it's up to this. The only way movie theaters are going to survive is if we get enough big studio blockbuster entertainments that keep them alive. That's it. And I don't trust the studios to even be doing that, because the forces that control the motion picture studios, your Vanguard, your BlackRocks, your Wall Street, they don't like Hollywood's business model, which is every single facet of our civilization. It used to be, it's like CBS News. CBS News, which gave us 60 Minutes, they used to be impervious. The CBS would make their news at a loss. CBS their news division was impervious, like the Walter Cronkites, Morley Safer, all that stuff, because CBS News knew that their news was not supposed to be money making. Their news was a public responsibility that they, as a network, as a business, had. All of that is gone. Everything. And people would say, Rob, why are you a capitalist if you're going to say this? Because our civilization used to have, we understood that you, like movies were art and commerce. That's why you could make The Verdict. That's why you could make Coming Home. That's why you could make Hal Ashby could have his career. You could see Harold and Maude, or you could go see Being There. Do we get those anymore? No. Movies were so much more adult. They were so much more sophisticated. They had so many more interesting stories to tell. Nowadays, there are very few stories that are really interesting that resonate. I mean, that's not to say there aren't good movies made, but there's not a lot of movies that go to your soul anymore. I mean, there's a lot of movies being made, but because the economics of everything, the economics of education, nowadays, if you can't make money, why do it? The problem is, capitalism, I think, works. It's a great system when it's not being perverted. But when everybody, the idea of profit, like 20 and 30% profit used to be good. But look at a company look what Big Pharma does and the amounts of money. All of that is the destroyer of art. Because art and commerce, it used to be okay if a movie had a 20% or 30% return for a studio. That was great. If a studio made a movie that, like Hunt for Red October, they spent $30 million on Hunt for Red October. How much did they make? $200-300 million? That's nice. That was great for a studio. Awesome. It's not great for investors. Wall Street investors today, they want to see unlimited growth, unlimited power. And that doesn't fit. So eventually, the kind of economics that have taken over the movie business are going to be the same thing that kills the business. It cannot sustain. Streaming didn't sustain. I mean, all of these new business models, the corporatization of Hollywood, it's a different business. The way corporations work is not the way Hollywood works, and they're trying to stick a square peg into a round hole, and it's going to kill the business. We're already hanging by a thread. Now, everybody still wants entertainment, but you know what? I mean, the business didn't even... Why? It's funny to me that so many people didn't look at YouTube. They still don't look at this is the 958th episode of this show of me talking into a lens. Now, if you look at Social Blade, it says I don't make very much money. And I don't make a lot of money, but it's not bad. I'm one dude. I'm one guy. Look at what Mr. Beast has done. Mr. Beast, you got to give it up for the man. And he's done something... I mean, in terms of creativity and how much money his channel generates, I don't even know if Aaron Spelling at his height could have anticipated that. Hollywood certainly didn't. I read today that Mr. Beast's management company, they just bought a podcast network off of Warner Brothers Discovery. Mr. Beast. You can sit there and eat a Mr. Beast candy bar, watch his videos, and now listen to his podcast channel? Insane. It's a free-for-all, man. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity for people, but in terms of answering your question, I don't know. I don't know if the studios, the way they exist now, the way they are doing business, if they're even capable of doing this kind of business in 10 years. And they forgot their core, all these mergers and acquisitions and all that. At the end of the day, a movie studio and television studio and streaming, their job is to make entertainment that is both great and profitable. But what everybody did was they went all into the Wall Street growth and all this other, I don't know why I'm air quoting that, but the way that these bigger corporations do business, and the way all corporations do business now, corporations are these behemoths, they cannot faint. They cannot, I mean, I faint, like not faint, but faint. They can't run around. They can't, they can't, fly like a butterfly and sting like a bee. They can't do that. They can't Cassius Clay their business. They can't Ali their business. They don't know how to do that. And they become bloated with middle management, and nobody can make a decision. Hollywood should not be like that. The last thing Hollywood needs, I'll tell you a funny story. This is a true story that I just heard this week. Let's see, how do I tell this story? Okay. There is a movie that's being made. It's not the fucking Scarlett Johansson period piece. I'm just going to say there is a movie that's I saw the trailer today, so it's not that movie. There is a period piece. So first of all, let me set this up. A good friend of mine works in QC, works in quality control. So what that means is he gets the files of movies and TV shows, streaming service. He's been doing this job for 25 years. And he has to look at the files to make sure they're okay. So like he didn't do this, but when I was working on Tango Shalom, I send my finished file, the finished 4K file, out to a company that does QC, quality control. Because you have to make sure that all the chrominance and the luminance and everything is to spec. And so you can send it around to the world. You could send it to Netflix. You could send it to Amazon. You could send it to Germany, to Japan, and the file will work for them. So it has to be looked at 4 ways till Sunday. Also, they look and see, can you see the camera? There was a C-stand. I edited this movie, and there was a C-stand I never saw. Because in my mind, it happens all the time. They found a C-stand. Anyway, so that's what QC is. A friend of mine's working on QC on a period piece. In this movie, the how do I put this without spilling the beans? The era that it took place in, the year it took place in, and the movie is the time it takes place is very important to the film. My friend noticed that there were things in the movie and places, people, music that didn't exist at the time when this movie was made. I mean, when this movie was about. So the era in which this movie was about, and it prided itself on dates and specifics. But there were other things in the movie that were wrong. Characters that either had died already or were going to die. There was all kinds of stuff that was wrong. So because he's doing QC, he put in his report that these things are wrong. Like if it comes out like you've made a historical movie, which means that people working on the film itself didn't do their research. Now, some people like Baz Luhrmann, if you're making a Moulin Rouge and you're using modern pop music and you're using it, 100 years ago in Paris, that's a stylization thing. But if you're making a historical epic that's specific and that deals with an actual events of the day, but you haven't done the research and you've done a lot of anachronistic stuff, like sometimes no one cares. Like I'll give you an example. In Stranger Things, that takes place in the 80s, they have the Kenner Millennium Falcon at one point. The problem is, I knew this because I bought it when it first came out. The Kenner Millennium Falcon they used in Stranger Things was actually one that was re-released in the late 90s. And you could tell because the engine was the special edition. They added detail to the Millennium Falcon engine. I saw that. That's not something that you would bump on. I was like, aha. And some of the songs they used in Stranger Things were not period specific, but I'm like, it's a fantasy show. So, but if you're doing a historical drama or a comedy or a farce or whatever that historical thing might be, and then it's dealing with actual history and they've got a lot of stuff wrong, my friend pointed it out. He wrote in his QC report, he's like, and you can say an answer to this would be, oh, that's creative intent. Well, they got pissed. The production, the post-production supervisor was mad because some of the stuff that they had put in this movie was stock footage. They'd actually bought stock footage for this specific period piece that was from the wrong period. Say it was 5 or 10 years later. And they were doing, and it just was wrong. And they didn't seem to care. This, to me, is the problem with the Hollywood business that we're dealing with. You're seeing all this institutional knowledge is gone at the studios. In order to cut costs, to keep Wall Street happy, they've gotten rid of all the people that know what they're doing or understand their own product. The people that are working at Warner Home Video, for example, not the UK version because they know what's up, but the people that, and not Warner Archive, but the people that are working at Warner Brothers on their own physical, they had a 100th anniversary that they celebrated. I mean, I don't want to say it was a wet fart, but it was. What a horrible 100th anniversary celebration. They could have released films. They could have remastered films and released 2 a week for 50 weeks. Put them on Max. They could have had a whole celebration. See the Warner Brothers catalog remastered in 4K and made a big deal about it. We would have gotten Excalibur. We would have gotten Say the Right Stuff. Those people at Warner Brothers today, if you were to go, hey, we should put out Excalibur in 4K, they go, what? Huh? Where's Robert Zemeckis' Contact? I mean, you've Christopher Nolan, Interstellar. I mean, Contact, Robert Zemeckis, Forrest Gump director. You made it after that. You own it. It's a big hit on DVD. It was one of the big first DVDs that came out in your little flipper box. They don't know what that is. The people that are working at the studios, Sony knows better. They know what's up. Paramount, doing a pretty good job for finding getting Chinatown. Warner Brothers? What the fuck, man? Give me a break. But whatever. I mean, this is a problem. Not only are the tastes and the movie-going habits of the public changing, but the studios themselves, the way they're doing business, it's not even about movies anymore. I mean, when they say streaming, they're not talking. Do you know what the secret to streaming is? I'll tell you, it's shocking. Good programming. That's what it is. Good programming. I mean, that's all it is. Shows people want to watch. That's what they want. It's not about spending a ton of money. It's about making shows people want to watch. I talked about Roy Lee earlier. He made a movie. He produced a movie called, I think it's called The Mother with J-Lo, action film. That movie cost like $40 million. That movie did better on the platform than Red Notice that cost $200 million. Netflix still thinks that by spending $200 million, they're going to get more subscribers. Well, that's a fallacy. Why is a streaming service spending $200 million on a movie? Why are you doing that? How are you going to get that money back? Why not make a great movie for $40 million that people like to watch? Squid Game, how much you pay for that? You never would have known it. Why is Joker, as much as I want to see Folly do, why is that movie $200 million? You made Joker for $65 million. It makes $1 billion. I understand. Everybody got to get paid. I understand. I get it. But $200 million? What was that for all the songs you licensed? I mean, we have a real problem in the business. And where was I? What was the question? Movie theaters. How long are they going to last? Probably as long as I can still buy 4K disc players, which is coming to an end. Paul Allen Bernardo says, I just got back from Gone with the Wind for the first time at my local real theater. Wow, incredible. Amazing. You're not the only one. I love that more than one person did this. That's amazing. Scott Bartholomew says, movies playing in theaters, 12 months used to be a cultural experience. Yep, they did, Scott. You're absolutely right. Scott Bartholomew says, interested in cinema as an art form? You should have watched Golden Age porn in the theater during the 70s and 80s. Well, I was a little too young. But now, thanks to companies like Vinegar Syndrome, I can get great bush porn from the 70s in beautiful high definition. Actually, I got to tell you, when I got Radley Metzger's, a.k.a. Henry Paris's classic porn film, Barbara Broadcast, I bought that on disc. I mean, but the thing is, you buy beautiful editions of 80s or 70s porn. It's like you can't just sit down and go, "Hey, what are you watching?" You can't just watch. I mean, although to be fair, I mean, Radley Metzger's early movies before he went hardcore, I can watch Licorice Quartet and The Image. Maybe the score. Score might be a little weird. My Elizabeth might be going, "Is there something about you haven't told me yet?" No, honey, there isn't. But you can get that stuff if you want it. Hail, hail, fire and snow. Call the angels. We will go. Hail, hail, fire and snow says, "It's great to see you guest on so many streams. You add sophistication." Well, maybe not on Oscar night, but that's vintage R&B. Keep spreading your POV wherever and whenever you can. Yes, I got hammered. No, it's true. I like to drink. I don't drink much anymore, though. Not because, I will drink. I have no problem with that, but I was drinking too much. I had not drank in a long, long time. And I had I was gone. As Taylor would say, Taylor Gonzalez would say, I was lit. I could barely, hit me hard. Yeah, I don't do that much anymore. I like hail, hail, and fired snow, though. First of all, though, I got to say, And the Children Shall Lead might be even worse than any Discovery episode. It's an original series episode. I know I try and find something to like. I love the original series, but that is the worst episode of Star Trek. Certainly the worst episode of the original series. Melvin Belli is Gorgon the Friendly Angel. Come on. Although, the kids, when they realize what they've done, losing their parents and all that, there's some real emotion and pathos there. John from New York says, I Saw the Devil is fantastic. Or wait a minute. Wait, you mean late night? Okay, wait a second. Wait a second. Hang on. I Saw the Devil. I'm going to assume you're talking about the Korean movie, the serial killer Korean movie with the cop and the serial killer. I Saw the Devil is fantastic. I own this movie. Okay, first of all, the Koreans, man, they are killing it. They've been killing it for 20 years. I mean, there's so many cool Korean movies, but if you are in fact talking about I Saw the Devil and not Late Night with the Devil, I Saw the Devil is fan-fucking-tastic. If you want to see it's rough too. If you want to see a great, I'd call it a horror movie, horror thriller, Korea's I Saw the Devil. Check it out. Really great. So John from New York says that he saw I Saw the Devil is fantastic. The opening scene is horrific. And I've tried to convince my friend to watch it with me. You should. Now, can you believe that I haven't even read the main article for the show yet? You probably can, because I've been going off. But I want to dip into this. This guy, Daniel Paris, I got this article from Medium. He has done I've read a few of these articles before. He's done a number of statistical analysis on various things. And back 2 days ago on Medium, he published this article. And a friend of mine, a guy that I follow, and he follows me on Twitter, also retweeted this article. And I was going to do this stream 2 nights ago. So I'm going to do it now. I'm going to read this article now because it's really interesting. Are movies better when we watch them in theaters? A statistical analysis. Now, as I've said, I think they are. From a psychological standpoint, I think from a attention standpoint, from all that, if you're open to it, I think the experience of seeing a movie, and I don't care what movie it is. I don't care if you're watching Stand By Me. I don't care if you're watching The Verdict. I don't care if you're watching Stripes. I don't care if you're watching Moulin Rouge. I don't care what it is you're watching. In a movie theater with great sound and great projection, seeing a movie on a giant screen, on a much bigger screen than you can see at home, unless you have that kind of money. One day I hope to. It's better. It's a better experience. All movies are better, if only because you pay attention to them more. They penetrate more if, in fact, you're watching them in a theater. I honestly 100% believe that. So let me just see. Let me just make sure. I just want to keep up with everyone. John from New York did say, I Saw the Devil. It must be the Korean movie. You have to be talking about the Korean movie. Kenneth Colton says, Watching you live during this year's Academy Awards was very lit. It was a pleasure to watch, Rob. You put your heart and soul out there. Much respect. Well, like I said, and like the critical drinker told Russell Brand, authenticity. What you see is what you get. And sometimes you might not like what I say, but I'm not bullshitting you. So here we go. Daniel Paris wrote this. Are movies better when we watch them in the theaters? A statistical analysis. Now, he writes that this essay was originally published in Stat Significant, a weekly newsletter featuring data-centric essays about movies, music, and TV. And I love this. The reason I want to read this too is because this intro is great. Let me just jump on before I jump totally into this article. Here's a chestnut that I've loved to hear. That I love to hear people say this. Avatar has left no cultural footprint in our society. Nobody talks about it. Look, man, Avatar made a ton of money, but it was a one-off. It's not like they did make a hot toy from it, though. It's not like it was supposed to be like it wasn't a franchise. It was one movie. That's like saying, well, Avatar, like The Abyss and like True Lies didn't make. I mean, not every movie has to become a franchise. So Avatar made all of this money, but did it leave a cultural footprint? Now, when people say no, my next question is it supposed to have? I mean, it made a ton of money. It came and entertained a lot of people. It became one of the highest grossing movies ever made. It revolutionized 3D. Still the best 3D ever done on both Avatar movies. Jimmy C, never bet against him. What was it supposed to do? Oh, come on, Rob. It was Fern Gully in space. Yes, okay. Like James Cameron does, he tells simple stories, regurgitates classic tales, puts them in a new, exciting wrapper, and it goes down easy. Fun to watch. He's pushing the R&D for the entire industry. But anyway, this article begins with this. One of the reasons I wanted to read it, just because I love talking about this particular topic and listen to everybody try and tell me that it has no cultural footprint. But anyway, intro. Does Avatar matter? Avatar was marketed as a revolutionary cinematic experience capable of transporting audiences to the alien world of Pandora. The film marked James Cameron's return to feature filmmaking more than a decade after the monumental success of Titanic, with media coverage emphasizing Cameron's development of state-of-the-art visual effects and the film's considerable $237 million budget. As Avatar hype reached a fever pitch, it became clear that this film was an unprecedented cinematic event with an urgency that demanded it be seen in theaters possibly multiple times. Sure enough, Avatar proved a box office phenomenon, surpassing Titanic to become the highest grossing movie of all time. And then, suddenly, the movie disappeared. Or rather, its cultural significance faded relative to its remarkable box office. Years after Avatar's release, Forbes declared 5 years ago Avatar crossed the 2.7 billion mark but left no pop culture footprint. In 2016, BuzzFeed created a quiz entitled, "Do you remember anything at all about Avatar?" challenging readers to recall basic details like the lead character's name, Jake Sully, or the actor who played Jake Sully, Sam Worthington, of course. Somehow, Avatar's commercial success had not translated into cultural longevity. Was this movie's short-lived preeminence a mass delusion, or was this film significantly more entertaining in theaters than at home? Indeed, Avatar is an example of a movie that is best enjoyed on the big screen whilst wearing 3D glasses. Unfortunately, few films can match the public fascination generated by Avatar's theatrical run or the hype surrounding its sequel released in 2023. As streaming services and prestige TV content have proliferated, the movie industry has struggled to lure audiences to theaters. Why leave your home and Netflix to pay $20 for a single piece of content when you could watch hundreds of shows for $15 a month? The film industry has countered this trend by emphasizing the indelibility of moviegoing, as highlighted by AMC's Nicole Kidman advertisement, which bizarrely promotes movie patronage to people already at the movies. Such fanfare begs fundamental questions on the value of the theatrical exhibition. Does the magic of the movies actually exist? Do audiences like movies more when seen in theaters. There was once a time when moviegoing provided entertainment experiences that were impossible to replicate outside of theaters. Enthusiastic fans saw blockbusters like Titanic, Star Wars, and Jaws multiple times, reveling in the audiovisual spectacle offered by 35mm film and Dolby Sound. This novelty would wane throughout the 2010s as the AV gap between theatrical exhibition and home entertainment narrowed. High-quality television products became increasingly affordable, while prestige television content flooded the market amidst Hollywood's streaming wars. In fact, television prices decreased at an unprecedented rate compared to other goods and services. Now here's the price change. Here's the chart. January 2000 to January 2021. And it talks about selected U.S. consumer goods and services. Maybe it's hard to read, but you can see that, and you can see exactly what's going on. You could watch content in the privacy of your home and see something spectacular in 4K without ever having to brave a Nicole Kidman advertisement. You could pay less and watch more. But was something lost within this paradigm shift? Does the ritual of moviegoing and the enhanced audiovisual experience provided by theatrical exhibition heighten entertainment value? To tackle this question, we'll use data from a site called Movie Lens, a virtual community that collects movie ratings. Let's put this up. We'll use movie ratings, a virtual community that collects movie ratings and reviews and then uses this data to recommend films to its users. So here is their chart, allowing us to pinpoint differences in viewer reaction between theatrical exhibition and home viewing. When we analyze average monthly star ratings in the months after a film's debut, we observe higher scores during a project's theatrical run, followed by a ratings decrease when that work moves to streaming and home video. This trend holds when comparing a single movie's initial ratings to those posted once that work has exited theaters, with 84% of films in the Movie Lens dataset receiving higher scores while in cinemas. Overall, online ratings increase anywhere between 2% and 5% during theatrical exhibition, depending on how we measure this phenomenon. Unsurprisingly, Movie Lens reviews for Avatar scored 10% higher while the film was in theaters, a win for those claiming its cultural staying power is inconsistent with its monumental box office. So here you go. There is a possibility that this spike in viewer satisfaction is the product of self-selection, that diehard fans, predisposed to love a movie, insist upon seeing that work in theaters. If this is the case, it still speaks to the value of theatrical exhibition. Marvel movies, A24 films, and Star Wars prequels draw audiences to theaters. Something about these movies is best enjoyed on a big screen in a communal setting. Some films have diminished appeal when viewed at home, while others could just easily be adapted into 8-part miniseries with little change in premise. Can we detect a difference in viewer appraisal based on storytelling conventions? Are certain movies quantifiably more enjoyable in theaters? Or do all works experience a uniform uptick in viewer ratings during cinematic exhibition? Which films are best enjoyed in theaters? The summer of 2023 ended the reign of comic book movies at the box office. The first half of the year, Marvel's Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania and DC's The Flash both bombed in spectacular fashion. Media outlets covered these releases by eulogizing superhero films, with The Ringer remarking, "The Flash is the depressing culmination of the great IP experiment," and Rolling Stone quipping, "Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania feels like the MCU has lost its way." Superhero fare was no longer a sure thing. Months later, the Barbenheimer phenomenon became a massive cultural event, with these two mismatched movies pulling in a collective $2.4 billion in global ticket sales. For so long, adaptations of superhero fare provided a clear-cut formula for eventizing a movie. Suddenly, the entertainment industry fell into crisis. Was the franchise model faltering? Was serendipitous counter-programming the new way? And could studios manufacture another Barbenheimer? Although the reliability of franchise IP has weakened, Hollywood's strategy is regrettably based on sound economic thought. Big-budget intellectual property performs well in theaters. When we look at the movies with significantly higher online ratings during theatrical exhibition, we find a collection of action films mostly derived from IP and arguably the two most controversial movies of the 2020s. Here is this. Here it is. I was young when Passion of the Christ and Fahrenheit 9/11 debuted, but I remember the adults around me being especially grumpy about these movies. At the time of their premiere, these films felt essential to American discourse, a factor that potentially galvanized audience appraisal in the short term. These projects are likely less impactful once you strip away the socio-political context surrounding their theatrical run. Unsurprisingly, when we examine the difference between short-term and long-term ratings by genre, we find that action and adventure movies score higher in theaters, likely due to audiences better appreciating their grandeur on the big screen. Somewhat surprisingly, comedies experienced increased ratings during theatrical exhibition. Perhaps there is added value to laughing as part of a crowd. Overall, the most significant spike in ratings belongs to the family film genre. My best guess is that these elevated scores reflect the big screen's ability to capture children's attention for prolonged periods, effectively babysitting those children. If we want to go deeper into genre, we can investigate the keywords associated with movies that receive higher ratings in theaters. Fortunately, Movie Lens encourages viewers to tag films with details of story, cast, setting, and technique, such as 3D, Africa, Bill Murray, violent, whimsical, and more. Examining theatrical ratings uplift by tag, we observe increased scores associated with story elements related to the science fiction and action genres. There you go. Oh, wait, I didn't get that. I don't want to miss that. Using these tags, we can perfectly optimize a film for cinematic exhibition, but not home viewing. All we need to do is produce a 3D alien invasion movie set in the future based on a video game, making reference to Jesus and starring an AI-revived Sean Connery. This film would delight audiences in cinemas while generating mixed reception when viewed at home. Final thoughts, what's cinematic? This past month, I watched Apple TV's Masters of the Air. I did too. A 9-part miniseries on the exploits of World War II airmen. The show is pitched as Band of Brothers, but with planes. The series spared no expense in its production, taking 3 years to create and costing between $250 million and $300 million to produce. Masters of the Air employed state-of-the-art flight simulation technology, replica B-17 planes, and construction of World War II barracks to scale. As I watched this show on my normal-sized TV and later on my iPhone mid-flight, I was struck by the needless excess of this program. Why spend so much money and time making something that could be consumed while multitasking on Instagram or amidst the screams of a child on my flight? Why spend $300 million on disposable content? One of the hallmarks of prestige television is the medium's adoption of cinematic storytelling conventions, anti-heroes, high-def camera work, and fanciful AV effects. The rise of prestige TV has coincided with the serialization of mainstream movies, which focus on developing characters and plots across multiple installments. Such convergence has muddied our conception of the cinematic, as it's become increasingly difficult to comprehend which medium best supports a given piece of content. Would Maestro and Masters of the Air be best received on the big screen? Would the MCU function better as a series of shorter installments on Disney+? Then there's the economics of moviegoing. Sure, there's a 2% to 5% uplift in movie enjoyment when viewed in theaters, but what's the monetary value of increased amusement? Is this 2% to 5% uptick in entertainment value worth leaving your house, driving somewhere, paying $20 per ticket, watching 25 minutes of trailers, and receiving a functionally pointless thank you from Nicole Kidman for entering a theater? For me, the answer is yes. This incremental 2% to 5% means the world to me. To others, this excess enjoyment may not be worth the hassle, unless it involves the Avatar franchise and the trials and tribulations of Jake Sully, who is the lead character in Avatar, in case you've already forgotten. I thought this was pretty interesting because what it does is it graphically illustrates what the business and how the business is thought about. And look, when it comes right down to it, you're dealing with a business that's sole purpose is to screen content, movies, entertainment, art in a venue. That's it. And so that venue is entirely reliant upon two things. Most of all, it first and foremost is reliant on the films that it's showing in the venue. And secondly, it's reliant on the people that come to see those movies. Our civilization, to take it all the way back to the beginning of this chat that's now 2 hours and 17 minutes long, movies are civilization. Our civilization, I think, is reflected over the last almost 130 years. Our civilization is reflected by the kind of entertainment we like, but also movies are about, look, if I watch a ballet, say my grandmother took me to see Coppelia, and I didn't know what Coppelia was about, but it's basically, in a way, kind of the dance version. It's about a robot, really. But I think that's how my grandmother sold it to me. But what's interesting about a ballet is when you're watching a ballet, you get great classical music. Usually I like it when it's played live, of course. And you're watching dance. You're watching the human body. You're watching the human body do things that you don't normally see. That is really what you're watching is beauty. Dance, ballet as an art form, to me, celebrates humanity, the ability of the human body and the human animal to do things that are nothing if not beautiful. That's what I love about ballet. That's what I love about going to a dance recital of any kind, because ballet celebrates beauty. Now, yeah, you can watch the ballets have a story and all of that, but really what you're seeing is the beauty of the human form in action. And there's no other way to get it that way. I guess you can watch gymnastics, but that's sports and you have competition there. But ballet to me is an art form that just celebrates beauty on many different levels: music, dance, movement, and humanity. Movies, however, have an intellectual component to them. Storytelling is inherently intellectual, and it's defined, I think, I hate to say this, but the smarter you are, the more you get out of a story. You can see it means different things. I'll tell you something. It was funny today. Gabe and I've been working on Zevious, who you can follow Zevious on Twitter. Zevious, who's done past work for me, incredible artist. Zevious had asked about doing a poster for White Devils, and he has a very interesting illustrative style. I thought, wow, I bet you could do something really cool. And so he's been doing these preliminary sketches, and I was going back and forth with Gabe, and because not only do we produce and edit and direct and all these things, but we're also our own marketing department. And I got into a conversation with Gabe about taglines for movies. And from my perspective, okay, I'm going to ask all of you, because everybody I've said this to today has got it right. And I'm going to say to you. So a tagline is like in a movie has a tagline, a line at the top that you remember. What is the greatest tagline ever written for a movie? Now, I would say there's lots of great taglines. When I worked at a advertising agency called Jacobs & Gerber in the mid-'90s, Craig Mazin, very, very smart guy, very well-educated guy who made Chernobyl. He worked in advertising. He was known, he wrote the tagline for Crimson Tide. And the tagline was, "Danger runs deep." That's a great fucking tagline. That's a banger. Now, the thing about taglines is, I got into a philosophical discussion with Gabe about taglines. I said taglines should work on multiple levels. And I pointed out, and I said, Gabe, there's one tagline that is the single greatest tagline ever written for a movie, in my estimation. And everybody got the tagline. I said this to 4 different people today, and they all got the tagline. So I won't say what it is right away, but I'm throwing it out to you. What is the single greatest tagline ever written for a movie? And the tagline appears on a poster. Now, I pointed out the tagline for Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. They have a great tagline, very clever. How on earth can they save the future? That's a great tagline. It works on multiple levels. That's a great tagline. Jaws 2, just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water. Now, there are some taglines that I think are good taglines that aren't necessarily great for the movie because they don't say anything about the movie. The Howling has a tagline. Imagine your worst fear a reality. Okay, but that's pretty generic. It doesn't necessarily say something about the movie that you're watching. But, I'm sure a lot of you, maybe that are watching this channel, have taglines that are favorite taglines of yours. Did I say Jaws 2? Because I've got them all. Just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water. Another great tagline. So, ladies and gentlemen, kind souls, gentle beings, what is the single greatest tagline? And by the way, some people might say Superman the movie, "You'll believe a man can fly." But that's not really a tagline. That's just a statement. It's saying something. Great line. "You'll believe a man can fly." I did. What is the greatest tagline in all of cinema history? Actually, I'm gonna look. I'm gonna look and see if anybody gets it. I'm sure you guys got it. Come on. If whoever's still watching this chat, let's see. Okay, somebody got it. As soon as I clicked on, I was like, Hunter Becknell. Boom. Boom. 65 million years in the making. Nope, Hunter Becknell got it. The single greatest tagline, and I know people are going to say, well, Rob, that's not the single. It is. In space, no one can hear you scream. That, in terms of, for the movie that it is, the fact that, that says a lot. It says a lot about what you're about to see. That, and everybody remembers it. In space, no one can hear you scream. In terms of a tagline in a movie, that's it. That's the best tagline of all time. And I know everyone, so there you go. Everybody got it. Everybody got it. Oh, there you go. Y'all got it. So there you go. It's not just a tagline. It's a science lesson. It's amazing. So there you go. It is. So we were coming up with a tagline today for White Devils. And the point is, it's art and commerce. We had to what is our tagline? And I actually, we did this before for Tango Shalom. And our tagline was, following your dreams can be rather unorthodox. Which I thought was pretty good. So, because I like taglines. Taglines are kind of a lost art. So we wrote one today. I wrote a tagline today with Gabe. But I was coming up with it, and he was throwing out ideas. I'm like, no. And, because you find out ideas. So this is for White Devils. Here's our tagline for White Devils. So our tagline for White Devils is, and I'll take credit for this one because I wrote it. In a dying land, all the graves are warm. Bam! There's our tagline for White Devils. I'll let you decide whether or not you think it's a good tagline. Tell me if you think it is. But if you knew about the movie and what it's about, it fits the film. In a dying land, all the graves are warm. So there you go. There's our tagline for White Devils. But the point is, you have the collision of art and commerce. You have the collision of intellect and entertainment. And that's what we need. And I think that the problem is our civilization, we're becoming less civilized. We're no longer looking out. And our youth, more importantly, it's the youth that looks out. It's the youth that wants to go out now. Everyone, I was listening to statistics because of, capitalism has let kids down. They can't afford to buy homes and all that stuff. They can't afford to have kids. They want to have more than one kid. They can't afford it, or they don't have kids at all. Our entire civilization is no longer about looking out. Boldly go, as somebody once said, where no one has gone before. Movies are an art form that rely on people who want to go out and become a part of civilization. Storytelling itself is about an engaged population of people that want to see the possibilities. Movie-going is only going to survive if we as a civilization can find it within ourselves to move forward, to not be cynical, to not believe the world's coming to an end, to believe that we can make a difference, to not think, we have to rage against the dying of the light. Our civilization, movies are a bellwether. They're about whether or not we're going to be civilized and continue to move forward. Because movies, like all art, is about civilization. It's about civilization quantifying and contextualizing itself. That's what art is. That's what movies do. I mean, look, not everybody can go and get something out of a painting. I mean, maybe you can, but, if you don't know anything about Renaissance painters, you can see a beautiful picture. You can recognize it as a beautiful picture. But if you don't know anything about the painter or the period of time it was painted, you lose a lot of the context. But a great movie, a good movie that has the power of storytelling is much more easily understood. And I'll tell you, the idea of storytelling, to want to hear stories being told, is to want to hear something that is not yourself, that is not you. You're looking outside of yourself. And I think our civilization, especially, the younger portions of our civilization, are looking inward. Everything is me, for various reasons. And we have to change that, because where are we going to be? I mean, I'm not going to be here in 50 years, I don't think, unless there's a great revolution and somebody downloads my intellect or brain into a generational spaceship, and I'll live in a virtual reality world, making sure that, the passenger spaceship that Chris wakes up in, Chris and J-Law wake up in, put my brain in that ship. I don't want to go off course like in Three Body Problem into oblivion, wind up with the spaceship at the end of Aniara. Hey, you're a disembodied brain. Where'd you come from? I came from Earth. So do we. I don't want to be that guy, but I put my intellect in a computer and I'll run a generational starship for 150 years to the next planet, whatever. I'll do that. But look, our civilization, in order for movies to survive, in order for movie theaters to survive, we have to keep looking outward. We have to keep looking out at the world around us and realizing, too, the reason we want to hear stories is because life is worth living, and we like to hear stories about people's lives that aren't us. It helps us learn. It helps us contextualize. Movies are still going to be important, I think, and gathering together and seeing movies with people that you don't know, that you might, if you talk politics online, you might hate them. But you could be sitting right next to some monumental douchebag that you cannot stand, that you've been fighting with online for the last 5 years. You wouldn't even know it's that person. And you're both sitting there laughing at the movie. And your politics won't matter. That's what the great power of cinema is. And I hope, for one, that we retain it. But it's up to us. Remember, movie-going represents civilization. And as long as we have civilization, I mean, fuck, man, even in The Postman, Kevin Costner's The Postman. Come on, what other YouTube show would invoke The Postman? But at the end, they're showing movies. What is it, Sound of Music? Is that Will Patton? God, I love Will Patton. Can somebody please realize the dream of putting Bill Sadler and Will Patton in a movie together playing brothers? I want to do this. I have a dream. Anyway, I've talked about it on the show. I don't want to get sidetracked. I want to have the big closing finale of this show. I want to see movie going endure. And it's only going to endure if movie going as a business brings it back. Can't keep, trying to get over the fence for those billion-dollar grosses. Why can't we make movies that, hey, on a Do it, smile. 18 million, 20 million spend, make 200 million. If you make 10 of those or 20 of those, of course, as Roy Lee once explained, where are you going to find those good scripts? I don't know. He finds them. He finds them, man. That guy, he's got some great fucking scripts, man. I don't know what he does, but he is the what is the word? He's the Gandalf of screenplays. Not everything he finds is great, but man, I don't know how he does it. But anyway, that's what we need. Those are my thoughts. This is a long show. I got to go back to YouTube and see what the reporting from CinemaCon's like. How is the Fall Guy? What did John Campea think? I should be there, but I'm not. But anyway, we will. Hunter Becknell says, no blah, blah, blah. Come on, man. Why are people invoking And the Children Shall Lead? Why are you doing that? Actually, wait a minute. No blah, blah, blah. It is when And the Children Shall Lead. Sometimes it's like, is that Miri too? Miri's another episode. Come on, Miri. Is that no more blah, blah, blah? Blah, blah, blah. No, I think that's And the Children Shall Lead. Peter Cunningham says, is pornography better in a movie theater? Well, Pee Wee Herman would tell you it isn't. First of all, look, pornography is not better in a movie theater. It's not. I don't care what anyone says. Pornography is a tool. It's always better when you have ecstasy and a significant other. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, no, it's not better in a movie theater. Kenneth Colton says, watch you live during... Oh, yeah, I already read that one. Bonk, bonk on the head. Man, you guys are just not letting up. I was 5 years old when season 3 of Star Trek aired. I remember playing Spock's brain all week after it aired. And The Children Shall Lead was also a favorite. Most of my fondest Star Trek memories are from season 3. Okay. Your Star Trek memories from season 3, look. You got the Enterprise incident. You got the Tholian web. You've even got things like Requiem for Methuselah. You know? Even stuff that I hated when I was a kid, like the Empath. You, my friend, are evoking Spock's brain? And The Children Shall Lead? Give me Plato's Stepchildren. You know what I mean? Give me the Cloud Minders. I was talking about that earlier today. But my God, give me Day of the fucking Dove. Kang and his wife. Come on. You're giving me bonk. Well, you weren't. And The Children Shall Lead. I love you for that bonk on the head. But I think that's so funny. You played Spock's brain all week. I would leave Spock behind and go see who the givers of pain and delight were, if you know what I'm saying. But anyway, that's very funny. All your memories of Star Trek are from season 3, but come on, man. The Romulan commander and the Enterprise incident. Come on. Season 3 gets a bad rap. It's not as good as seasons 1 and 2, but there's still some bangers. You know what? First time we saw a Klingon battlecruiser. Elaine of Troyes. Come on. All good things, man. Oh, that's a different series. Michael says, hi, Rob. If you could build your home theater with money being no object, would you stick with a high-end projector on the wall from Samsung or the new LG G4 OLED 97-inch? Personally, I would go with the wall, but I'm short about $100,000. No, you know what I would do? I would get an actual movie theater projector, a laser projector, probably an IMAX projector. But I would get a laser projector. That's what I would do. I know somebody who, a friend of mine has a home theater, and the projector alone's $500,000. If money was no object to me, because I priced this out, it would probably, this is not, if I had, I first have to build, I would build a separate structure. What my dream is, I want to build a 2-story structure. We have enough room in the driveway. I want to build a 2-story structure. The bottom structure is going to be a dedicated movie theater. The second story would be the Robservatory. And then I want to have a roof deck. And on the roof deck, it's the party deck, where it'd have like an outdoor kitchen, a big grill. And so you could have, I could work, and then I could, we could have a great home theater and screen things, but I'll actually work and make films, do post. Problem is I'm getting old. So my time in being able to do this, the thing is, I've worked in the independent film world. I've never had any great monetary success in my life. So I'm still shooting for it, but I'll never be able to build what I want, unfortunately. But no, I would go with a laser projector. And I would want to have, I mean, if I built a home theater, I would want to have, I mean, a real home theater. The person that has this $500,000 projector has it's incredible. I would say he's got a gigantic, it looks like a real movie theater. I mean, the screen, and it looks like a real movie theater. I mean, I'd need a lot of money. But, you know, for a decent, like if I was going to build a theater in here, which is a garage, you'd still need a bigger screen. I'd still want a 200-inch screen in here. I don't know if if you have enough throw for a projector, but I'd want a laser projector. So Darren L. MN, is that Minnesota? Again, I always ask you that. How many times have I asked you that? 100 times. Dune 2 was a revelation in a theater pre-Trub. I'm with you. Darren, can you imagine seeing that movie? See, the thing about Dune is, from a picture and sound perspective, seeing it in IMAX or seeing it however you saw it in a big theater, I can't imagine seeing that. That movie is not the same movie if you don't see it in a theater. It just isn't. I don't even know how they recorded Hans Zimmer's score. I've never heard a score sound like that. Denis Villeneuve and his sound team, Blade Runner 2049, Dune, and Dune 2 are the best movies, best recorded films I've ever heard in a theater. Jamie Sundays says, the theater experience is so sacred to me. I wait for certain classic films to be re-released just to view it the way it was intended. I'm waiting for Godfather Part 2 to be released. Yeah, they did that when they put out the 4Ks of them. I agree. Even the Godfather movies are better in the theater. I mean, they really are. And on that note, everyone, I was going to read Rick Cleveland, my friend Rick Cleveland, who's a writer. I was going to read his article, but I'm going to save it for tomorrow. Obviously, I'm not on the John Campea show this week because they're at CinemaCon. But hey, this is a fun show. I want to thank everybody for your generous support. I hope everyone's super chats, you heard me read them because there was a time when the stream went out. And on that note, I want to thank Tom Jr. Jackson for being a great moderator that I've kept him up till 3 a.m. on a weeknight. Should I apologize for it? I apologize for it. I'm sorry, Tom. And I want to thank all of you. Let me just make sure that I've got everyone's Hunter. No, blah, blah, blah. So funny. I think I've got everybody. I think I got everyone's. Romy Forever says, you are my freaking hero. Well, Romy, thank you for that. And thanks for being a member of the channel. I appreciate that. Tom Jr. Jackson says it was down for 20 seconds. Oh, okay. Well, then maybe I didn't lose you. Romy says, forgive my ignorance. The last time I wrote into anything was when comics had letter pages. How do I write into you? You know what? I think our website is down. Normally you'd write to Post-Geek Singularity because we're changing everything around. I will find out because I haven't had letters in like a week. Freeman Film says the only thing better than apes on horses or talking apes on horses would be talking ninja apes on horses. It's true. Jay Angel asks, hi, Rob. Denis Villeneuve's upcoming adaptation of Nuclear War Scenario, I think, will be the darkest we've ever seen from him thus far. Jay Angel, he's talking about a book. They've announced this woman wrote a book called Nuclear War Scenario where she has all these. It's really depressing. I've seen her on 2 different talk shows talking about what nuclear war would look like. It's very depressing. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we're getting dangerously close. The thing is, the lack of respect that people have has bled over into every part of our civilization, which is a bummer. But yeah, I don't know if, God, do we want to see that? But I don't know. By the way, to Paul, who did say that the theater had always been an extremely intimate place thanks to my own dad, do you think there's a finite timetable of theaters? See what he sent me off on. That was his first super chat. So, Tapa, thank you for that. I appreciate it. So there we go. I think I'm caught up. I think I've seen. Drew Skizzy says, good night, Rob. And Bushin Ryu Cat sends in a sticker. Thanks for that. I appreciate that. And I'm gonna finally end this show. So remember, say it with me now. Every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. And with that, I say to all of you, have a better night. And how about that eclipse?